Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited to have you here tonight for our trailer safety prevention of accidents trailer safety webinar with Dr. Husted. I'm going to give a little intro for Dr. Husted right now, as we still have some folks logging on this evening. Dr. Husted is a volunteer firefighter, public information officer, and fire prevention instructor for the city of Gray, Georgia. Dr. Husted does research and development work for several veterinary schools and other institutions and provides education about the heavy rescue of animals. She's an internationally sought speaker and instructor. She's edited and wrote the only textbook available to fire service and veterinarians on the technical rescue of large animals, and several chapters in major veterinary books on similar subjects. She contributes her time and expertise to several international committees for equine welfare, including PATH International, and she is also the NFPA Standard 150 Technical Chair and Subject Matter Expert. Dr. Husted holds a Bachelor's of Science from Wolford College and a PhD from Clemson University. Her current scientific research interests include a national survey of trailer accident safety, or excuse me, a trailer accident causality and other horse barn fire causes, and also physiological responses to technical rescue procedures and equipment in large animals. Dr. Husted is a former logistics officer for FEMA's Veterinary Medical Assistance Team. She's a decorated combat veteran and a major in the U.S. Army Reserves. She's active in several various organizations related to disaster preparedness and equine welfare. She also gives training worldwide in technical large animal emergency rescue techniques and methodologies, and equine cruelty investigations. She has published numerous critiques, original techniques, and innovative journal articles on a wide variety of subjects related to equine heavy rescue and welfare. Whew, that is quite the bio. So we are so excited to have her here tonight. We'd like to thank the Fauna Health Committee who organized this webinar, specifically the Fauna Health Committee's board liaison and very fine member, Ms. Jo Clough, who did this coordination with Dr. Husted. We're really excited to do this webinar tonight. We know that you will all take away something valuable here. And if we're ever in a situation where we need this information, we hope that it'll be something that you can draw on and will prevent an accident, hopefully, or if you're ever unfortunately in an accident, it will help you know how to respond in that event. So as we go through tonight's webinar, we're going to pause briefly during different sections of the webinar. So you can use the question and answer box down there at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. You can also type your question in the chat, or you can type it directly to me. If you're following us on Facebook Live right now, you can type your question in the comments box underneath the video. We will try to keep track of all the questions as we go through and get through everyone's questions this evening. Also, don't forget that if you have to jump out to go do something this evening, like feed your horses or feed your family, that's okay. All of our webinars are recorded and they will be available on the Fauna website and YouTube page after this webinar is finished. So with no further ado, Dr. Husted, thank you so much for being here tonight and doing this two-part webinar series for us. We're so glad to have you, and we're excited to jump into all this exciting information.
Well, thank you. Full disclosure, I do not have a Friesian. That's the closest I could get. was my black Hanoverian mare, but I've always wanted a Friesian. Does that count?
We might be able to help you out with that.
I bet. Okay. Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about a lot of things this evening that are probably a little bit tough. I tried to take out most of the gore and those kinds of things. We're talking about the prevention part tonight. But really what we want to discuss is, these are dangerous incidents, and it's not just for the horse, it's for the bystanders, it's for the driver of the vehicles, it's other drivers that are out on the road, and of course for our responders in the fire service and EMS, etc. So we want to try to prevent these as much as possible. And transportation safety is really an owner responsibility. More and more, the police officers that respond to these kinds of things are starting to give tickets, and they're starting to ask owners to take the responsibility for, hey, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? There's laws for what we're supposed to be doing. And part of that is it's also difficult and dangerous for our animals. So we start looking at welfare for our animals. And of course, we love our animals, we love our horses, but sometimes we get a little bit too busy worried about all the other fun things that we do with animals. And horse trailers can be, it's a lot of work. It requires maintenance, requires care. And there's always someone who's willing to say, oh, I get my husband to do that. And I go, well, if you're driving it, you need to know what you're doing with that. So that's where it becomes a little bit challenging. So you can plan, you can prevent, you can prepare, and you can respond better, and you can make it easier for the people around you if you actually do have an incident. So it comes down to, have you done your homework? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to share with Angie a bunch of information that's homework in details with resources and links and those kind of things for those of you that are really excited about following up on this kind of stuff. And the whole point of this picture is, I know there's not Friesians, but the horses are looking at us like, hey, have you done your work? And have you done the homework? Because we're asking the animals to get into a very scary place. And we obviously need to do our work before we do that, because this is what we end up with otherwise. This is just, I have thousands of these, Angie. I mean, I pull them from social media. I pull them from people send them to me. They send them to me via text. They send them to me via email. Hey, you won't believe what happened here. And occasionally I even end up on the phone with, lawyers and sadly, insurance companies asking questions as well, because, how many of these have you seen? Well, with that particular brand, I don't know. What brand is the safest? I don't know. We are trying to gather that kind of information. And as we go through this, you're going to start seeing that we really don't have a lot of information. So we got to do the best that we can with our horses and our trailers. And this is just one example. That is a horse trailer that did not wreck in the way that we traditionally think of turning over, but it slammed into something. And you see what happened to the nose of that gooseneck. And I go, that doesn't look like it should. It has a crumple zone, but I don't know whether or not it should have crumpled with that small a trailer. So what's really going on there? Is that a maintenance problem? Is that a manufacturing problem? For example, this, one of my Facebook friends sent me this in August last year. And I look at these kind of pictures and I go, what is going on with this trailer? What is going on with the manufacturer? I mean, the entire, all the axles have sheared off.
Yeah, there's no wheels there.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the other pictures that were posted online, you can see the axle is over here and one of the wheels, I don't know where the other axle is, but look at the bottom of this horse trailer. It doesn't look like there's a whole heck of a lot of support. So that's where I start telling people you need to crawl underneath your trailer before you buy it. And then of course, look at this. People say, oh my goodness, I want a nice lightweight trailer so I can pull it behind my Subaru. And I go, no. And then I also look at things like fiberglass roofs, because you see what happens there. And Angie, you know what happens to people if they get ejected from a car in a car wreck?
Yeah, not good.
It's not good. And the same thing with horses. If they get ejected, the whole game is to try to keep them in the trailer, because we don't set trailers up for having wrecks in them anyway. So we can talk about that a little bit. So I sort of put together a list of the kinds of best practices that I would like to see owners follow for any kind of transport of their horses. First of all, you should know how to hitch, how to maintain, and you should really take a safety course on how you do all those things with your trailer, not somebody else's trailer, but your trailer and your horses. Obviously, train your horses to load and unload nicely and to be calm in trailers. That is something that I think we don't focus enough on in the horse industry. Have a relationship with your veterinarian, because a lot of these wrecks happen close to home. You're on the way to the veterinarian, or you're on your way to a local show, or you're doing something locally. And so, for most people, they're not driving across the country when they have one of these wrecks. It's right down the street, and something happens. So have a relationship with your veterinarian, because they are your best friend for your horse when we have one of these wrecks. Clean and check your trailer regularly. I couldn't say that enough. And that really comes down to, if you don't know what you're looking at, you're going to find someone who does, whether it's a maintenance person, or it's the husband that is a maintenance person, or whoever it's going to be, that can really take a look at your trailer with a very careful eye and say, instead of going, oh, that looks great, and the paint job looks great, have they climbed underneath the trailer? Some of the places that we see the biggest problems is where people never look. So check, check, and check again. We're going to check tires. We're going to show you some things with electrical. We're going to show you some things with hitching, floors, doors, ramps, all those kinds of things. And then the last thing for our homework is prepare to break down with your trailer. Now, I know that sounds awful, Angie, but it's true. If you drive enough, you're eventually going to break down with your trailer. You're going to blow a tire. You're going to have some issue. Hopefully, you're not overturning the trailer. But people tend to think about trailer wrecks as being these god-awful messes. It's not always that. It's you blew a tire, and now it's in the dark, and you're on the side of the interstate, and you've got horses in it. What do we do now? Do you really want to stop on the side of the interstate? Generally, I tell people, limp it. Even if you destroy that wheel, I want you to limp it to a safe place, whether it's off a ramp or a nice wide spot that you can get way off the road. And then, of course, you're going to call immediately to 911 and get a police department or fire department there with their vehicles that provide you a little bit of cover with their emergency lights and those kind of things while you deal with it, especially in the dark. So what we mean by homework is some of the things that we don't want to learn about. Axles and bearings. Axles are what the wheel actually fits on. So in this picture on the left, the gray thing here is actually the wheel. Okay, and the axle runs down the middle underneath the trailer in that kind of an axis. And the axle has to be lubricated at the very ends. There's bearings that the wheel turns on, and those have to be lubricated. The tire is the black part that everybody's used to looking at and paying for about every 5 years. And according to manufacturers' recommendations, those tires should be replaced. And then, of course, the hitch, the floor corrosion, the air in your tires are not eternal air, believe it or not. You actually have to add air once in a while. Tire tools and lubrication, because there's nothing more frustrating than having this happen and you don't have the appropriate tire tool, you don't have the appropriate lubrication, or you don't weigh enough to be able to actually wrench that off of there. So we always tell people you ought to practice replacing a tire at least once so you really know what you're doing. So some of that comes down to, let's take a look at your trailer. This is a friend of mine's. If Angie, when friends come to my house with their trailers, they're in trouble and they know it. So when they get there, I tell them, hey, let's go take a look at your trailer. This is my girlfriend. She does my taxes. I help her with her trailers. So we get there, we pulled all the mats out. We take a look at the electrical. We take a look at all the different pieces, parts, and I want to look at that floor and the ramp and the electrical pieces. And then we do some cleaning and maintenance. So we actually pull out everything, get everything nice and clean. You can't see what's wrong until you get it nice and clean. That's just the way it is. And of course, it's also nice if you have something that you can crawl underneath the trailer, either a plastic mat or a piece of tarp or something, so that you can get underneath the trailer and see what's underneath the trailer too. So clean that trailer before you even think about maintenance so that you can see what you're actually looking at, particularly on the floor and those kind of things. So a lot of people say, well, I don't have a wooden floor. What am I worried about? And I go, well, do you have an aluminum floor? You can start having pitting and corrosion. It is true that aluminum technically doesn't rust like steel floors do, but they corrode. It's the same process. It just is white instead of the red rust that we're used to looking for. So this is actually one of my trailers. This is a 23-year-old trailer, and I was starting to have some pitting and corrosion in the trailer. So what we actually did was I had a layer of material that after we got it nice and clean, we actually brought in the layer of material. It was about $1,500, but that will stop that corrosion from occurring. Over the years, I've been very careful with my floor, but we started seeing some of that pitting and corrosion. I certainly don't want to have to worry about my horses going through a floor. So wooden floors, we really have to look for potential failure in those kind of things. And that means you got to get those mats, which means you need to get some of those C-clamps or some strong guys to come help you rip all those mats out. I know they're heavy, but you cannot look at the floor just by pulling up the mat on the very back. You need to get those mats out, clean the entire floor, and then start looking. And Angie, I don't know if you can tell it or not, but you see this, it looks like a woodpecker's been in there.
Yeah, that doesn't look good.
I pulled up, this is a different girlfriend's floor. We pulled all the mats out and I started getting in there with a screwdriver and I could actually take the wood apart. So we were like, your trailer's staying here. We're going to have to replace that floor that's in your trailer. In some places, the potential injury is along the edge of the trailer, like right along here, where the corrosion, the condensation, where water can run down, especially if you have like desert areas where it gets really hot in the daytime and gets really cold at night, you'll have a lot of condensation running down the wall. I've seen other places like Washington State. I was out there one time and I just randomly picked a trailer for a class that we were looking at. And I was able to take my knife right about here where the wall comes down right here. And I was able to basically slide my knife down into the floor. It was so spongy because of all that corrosion. So you really got to pull all that stuff out of there and really take a good look before you do that. So this is one of my trailers. I have several trailers, and this is one of my trailers. A couple of years ago, we decided this was a new COVID project. We were due for, it had been about 14 years. At the 10-year mark, I was thinking about replacing the floor. And I said, hey, it's COVID. We'll go ahead and do this project. So we pulled everything out. We painted everything underneath, checked for any challenges and problems. It's a great time to, you got it up on blocks. It's a great time to do all your lubrication of your bearings, check your brakes, do all those kind of things. Make sure your wiring is in conduit. When these smaller trailers, it's a great opportunity to do that. And then, of course, I painted it before I put the floor down in the trailer. So you can do that too. It's not that difficult. With just a few tools, you can do that. And then you don't have to drive down the road and wonder, I wonder if my boards in my floor are going to fail or not. So it's not impossible to do.
I have a couple questions on floors. Do you want to take them now?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so Dan has a question. He said that you mentioned that you had material placed on the pitted aluminum floor. What type of material did you use to do that replacement?
I will have to look up the name of the material. There's it's something that they use in trailers regularly. It's not like this. It's similar to the kinds of things that you put in a back of a bed of a pickup truck, but it's specifically made for the aluminum floor to stop that pitting.
Okay.
Starts
like
with
a
R.
coating.
Yeah, it starts with an R, and I can't remember. It's like Raptor or something, but I'll have to look it up.
And what about worm floors, the We Eliminate Rubber mats, the rubber coating that's like a solid coating? How do you feel about that? Good thing, bad thing?
I don't have a problem with it. It is expensive. A lot of people have been using it, apparently very successfully. I have not seen any floors that have had failures due to that. Okay. So I think it's probably a great idea. It may add some cost, but I look at it this way, it may be worth it too.
Okay. How often should you wash out your floor? You're riding around all the time with your horses. They pee in there, they poop in there. Should we wash it?
Okay.
How often should we pull out all the mats and wash everything out?
So what I tell people is you should rinse out your trailer every single time you use it. Just scoop out the horse poop, and if there's pee, then you should probably rinse it out. Okay. I find that a lot of people don't do that. If you actually go to even fancy, I call them pinky finger barns, where people have beautiful things. And I walk around the back parking lot and I look in their trailers, and they come home from a show and it's late at night and they're tired, and they pull the horses off and they shut the door and they mean to go back and they never do. So a couple days later, it's still sitting there with a lot of manure and urine in that trailer. If I had done that, I would definitely, pull that out and rinse it out. You probably don't have to pull out the mats every single time you do something like that.
I hope not, because they're really heavy.
Yeah, I do it about 2 or 3 times a year. I haul probably twice a week. If you're hauling more than that, obviously you need to do that more often. And of course, if you're hauling other people's horses, then you really need to be cleaning that out more often, just from the biosecurity perspective.
Okay. And you mentioned bearings as part of the homework and to learn about those, but just in general, how often?
I'm going to have a picture for you.
Okay.
I'm going to have
how
a picture
often
for
should
you
we grease those or pack?
That really comes down to manufacturer's recommendations. And if you make friends, I am actually very good friends with the place where I take my trailers and my trucks to get tires, because I have multiple trucks and multiple trailers. So I made good friends with them, because I'm probably sending their kids to college anyway at this point. But I trust them. So we have mileage standards where you can say, hey, every 10,000 miles, you need to replace your bearings, or not replace your bearings. You should have your bearings lubricated. Some people say you should do it every 5,000 miles. It really comes down to having somebody that you trust, that you're working with, that can take a look at that. In general, they will tell you every single year. If you're not hauling very often, once a year is probably sufficient.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I'm going to show you some pictures too, where you can actually see the grease in the bearing when it gets too hot, or it's started to fail. It'll sort of it changes it's not as sticky anymore. So it'll actually start getting more oily, and it'll run out and it'll run onto your wheel, and you can see it.
Okay. Karen wants to know, when we rinse our floors, should we rinse them with water or some type of cleanser, neutralizer? What's the best?
Again, that comes down to preferences. There's a lot of things out there on the internet. I am a big fan of, I get a pressure washer and I just use water. If I am going to getting ready to put my mats down, before I had that on my floor, what I would do is I would take some of that baking soda in my aluminum floors and just put it underneath the mats, and then put the mats down on top of that. Because what's supposed to happen is the baking soda is supposed to neutralize that. There's also some very fancy versions of that you can buy. That's not a bad thing. It really comes down to, you can use a little soap if you need to be, especially if you're worried about the biosecurity part. But generally what you're trying to do is neutralize that out. And that's why if the horse urinates, that's when I just rinse it out with water in between.
Okay, that gets us all caught up now. Thanks.
That gets us to pressure washing. So when you're cleaning, particularly whether you're doing biosecurity or you really want to clean, it's nice to use a hose, but if you've got a little pressure washer these days, they're not that expensive. Get yourself a pressure washer, start at the top, work your way down, and get all that stuff out from underneath. Because, horse sweat, horse breathing inside your trailer, all that DNA and the stuff that comes off, scurf and things that comes off their coats, especially if they're rubbing on the sides of your trailers and things, it gets in there, and those biological materials attract water. And the more stuff that's inside your trailer, especially if you drive, like I live in Georgia and I end up driving down dirt roads sometimes, all that stuff just gets everywhere in the trailer, and it holds water, which also causes it to rust and those kinds of things. So to get around those problems, you can tell this is a 22-year-old trailer, and it's been painted. I painted it myself. You can get the materials if you go down to your local hardware store and tell them what you're trying to do. This is a steel trailer, and I've actually painted the trailer myself. So it's not impossible to do, but pressure washing it regularly keeps it nice and clean, and you won't have the rust problems that you might have on a steel trailer otherwise. And then of course, washing and waxing. You can tell that's my husband's feet. So whatever you got to do to pay the husband, no, just teasing. The other options are, that's my trailer. Also, if you don't have a pressure washer at home, before you pull into the local car wash, first of all, make sure they'll let you do a horse trailer in their car wash. And number two, make sure you can fit it in there, because I've had friends that have, hey, this is a great idea, and they pulled in and they didn't realize that their trailer was so tall it was going to hit the little swing arm on the, and then, you know, people at the car wash don't like you when you do that, and your trailer doesn't like it either. So but washing and waxing by hand, or if you have to go to get it done, there's plenty of options. It's going to cost you some money, but it's well worth the time and effort. So once you get it nice and clean, what I really want you to think about from the safety perspective is, let's add some reflective conspicuity tape. Now, how's that for a word for this evening? Conspicuity. So DOT, Department of Transportation, has all these rules for trailers that are over 10,000 pounds, which would be our large 4-horse living quarters trailers and up. You know, tractor trailer drivers with large trailers and those kind of things, and even some of the large RVs. They're supposed to have all this extra conspicuity tape on them. Well, if you're under 10,000 pounds, DOT don't really care. What you're supposed to have is, you're supposed to have something down here on this gray trailer at the bottom. That's the minimum standard for an under 10,000 pound trailer. Well, guess what? Angie, has anybody ever had problems with their lights and their brakes on a horse trailer?
Oh, lots of people.
It happens all the time. So if these aren't working on this left-hand picture, if the lights aren't working right here on the side, there's only 2 of them. And then if these little top running lights aren't working, and then over here on the side, the little crappy light that's supposed to be on the fenders over there, if for some reason you're having a problem and there's no lights working, then the only thing that somebody can see when they're coming up behind you is these 2 crappy little pieces of conspicuity tape. And you know why? Because conspicuity tape is like $2 a foot, and the manufacturers are cheap and they don't want to spend the money. Because if you actually put enough conspicuity tape at the bottom, on the door, at the top, on the sides, all the way down the side, at the top and the bottom, guess what? That's like 150 feet of tape times $2. That's $300. Oh my God, we're going to spend an extra $300? We can just put that in our pocket instead. So this is what a lot of horse trailers look like. And people say, well, I've got a big old silver, you know, the back of my aluminum trailer is silver. I don't care. Pull up behind your trailer in the dark and turn your lights on and see if you can see it. When you pull up my driveway, it looks like we're going to Mars. I mean, there's so much, because it's on my trucks, it's on my trailers, on the side trailers, on my flatbed trailers, everything. And the reason is, learn from the fire department. They know how dang dangerous it is to be on the road. So this gal, she came to one of my classes and she got home and she got religious about it. And I mean, she sent me pictures. I was like, good for you, girl.
She gets an A+.
That's right. But she put it on the ramp. She put it on the interior doors. If you don't ever want to have to unload horses on the side of the road, but if you do, you want to make sure that you've got conspicuity tape inside there too. And this is what I'm talking about. I want your trailer to look like this. This is on the left-hand side. That's Tori and Justin McLeod from North Carolina. And they are serious about, they might have a little bit of a fetish about stickers, but by God, you can't say you didn't see it. And this is my ex-husband's trailer. And you can see there's one little light that's not working for whatever stupid reason, because there always is. But he even pulled in the concept that the fire department has of the chevron. Now that's probably 200 feet of tape. I mean, $200 worth of tape right there. That might be a little bit excessive, but let me tell you, on the side of the road, when you have these kinds of problems, you want to be seen, especially in the dark, in the rain, in the worst case conditions that you could think of. You want other drivers to be able to see you because you've got your horses in there. And if you don't, this is what it looks like. These are the kinds of things that happen. It is so ridiculous how often horse trailers get slammed into from behind. And part of it has to do with they can't see you. So, and you know, we're going slower, you know, we're trying to be careful and all those things. And then somebody comes along, there's the 4D drivers, there's the drunk, drugged, distracted, drowsy, and then we added another one, dumb. So people aren't paying attention. And the most dangerous place you can be is out there on the road. And you know, what's going to happen to a horse in the back of this trailer? I mean, we all know what's going to happen. Horses don't survive those kind of things. You know, in this case, one horse was okay. In the other case, apparently one of the horses had to be euthanized. But, you know, it is awful when you see these kind of things. And of course, the other thing that it asked me too is, why is this trailer so easy to destroy being hit from behind? But that's a whole nother conversation. So, are there any questions at this point?
Not at this point. Everybody's searching on Amazon where they can buy.
That's right.
However you say that tape, conspicuous tape. I'm going to call it conspicuous.
Yes, yes, and I'll send you some resources on that too. So part of this is sort of learning. You know, we learn about the anatomy of the horse. You know, and you know, I ask fire department people that don't know anything about horses, and I say, hey, do you know where the withers are? And they like look. They're like, what? I'm like, do you know where the fetlock is? No. So same thing with this. We have to learn, where is all these kinds of things? So what load range do I have on my tires? You know, you can have load range C of a ST tire, which is a standard trailer tire. A load range C is your minimum standard. And let me tell you, back when I was young and dumb, I had load range C tires. And they blew all the time. And I got sick and tired of it. And I finally upgraded and I paid for a higher quality tire. And now I run load range E or load range G on my big trailer. And guess what? Knock on wood, I don't have those kind of problems anymore. So
everybody's writing this down. They're going to be running outside to see what load.
Just you want to go out, you can see it on the side of your tire. You can look for your load range and it will tell you, you know, whether or not what kind of tires you have. You also should have somewhere on your trailer. The problem is this often with UV light and those kind of things, the printing eventually goes away. But somewhere on your trailer, originally when it was manufactured, there was a sticker on it and it says manufactured by who, and then it has a GVWR, which is gross vehicle weight rating. And that's in kilograms and then pounds. So we're going to look at those a little bit later, but 9760 for this trailer would mean that that trailer's gross vehicle weight rating for that trailer is that trailer sitting still with everything you're going to put in it. Your horses, everything cannot be more than 9,760 pounds. And the interesting thing is it's got 2 axles and those axles are each 4,880 pounds. So that adds up to your 9,760 pounds. But we'll talk about that in a minute because the problem is they never thought about women and tack rooms. I mean, storage rooms. I mean, tack rooms. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. But while we're crawling around and looking at the anatomy of our trailers, we're used to seeing this view of our trailer's floor. But we need to get down and get under our truck and trailer and take a look at what's actually underneath there, because we want to be able to see what do the floors look like on the underneath. We need to see if there's any pitting or problems. Sometimes you get underneath there, and especially if you live in those states where you have this white stuff for like 6 months out of the year, and then they put down the salts and they do all those kind of things. The underside of your trailer can be eaten alive by salt and those kinds of things. In those kinds of places, you really need to wash it more often, and you really got to get up underneath that trailer and do a good job with that pressure washing to try to get all that stuff off of there. I actually had a coating that was put on my trailer underneath there. You can actually spray it onto your metal to try to prevent that from happening. Apparently that's pretty common up north. They don't do it very often down here in the south. But as my trailer was getting a little bit older, since I had gone to the effort of painting it, I decided to go ahead and get that coating put on just to try to limit the amount of rusting that could happen to my trailer. So, you know, taking a look at those kinds of things. Taking a look at ramps. This happens to me one of my worst. I hate these things, okay? And they're still out there in the world. It amazes me. This is basically a garage spring. As a firefighter, we hate these things. They're absolutely terrifying and dangerous. And can you imagine that that's a perfect place for a horse as he's backing out of this trailer to put his foot right there? If he slides his foot through there, he's done. He's going to kill himself. This is what it looks like when the door is closed. This is what it looks like when the ramp is open. And it is a loaded spring, and it is strong enough to kill somebody. So this is another example. This is why we firefighters hate these things, because over time, this spring, you can see it right here, has been opened and closed and opened and closed and opened and closed, and it's a steel spring. And over time, this is getting ready to fail. When they fail, they just explode. And it's really dangerous. And of course, this guy is demonstrating for us how dangerous that could be if, you know, a person or if a horse slid their leg down between that spring and the wall. So I don't like those kinds of things. But if you have these, get a different kind of spring that should be in the ramp. I'll show you some examples. These, I don't have a problem with these, but you can tell that old trailer was having some problems. So all these old springs in here are rusting. They're not doing their job anymore. They're getting ready to fail. And then what happens is, of course, the ramp over time, it gets wet. Usually those ramps have some wood in them. If people are lazy and leave the ramp down, then water runs down into that wood. And you start noticing over time, man, my ramp sure is heavy these days.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's wet inside there. And then, of course, one of these days your horse is going to step on that, and it's going to make it worse. This is an example of my ramp on my trailer. I got that replaced. I didn't have a problem with the springs, but the wood that was on the ramp was starting to fail. And so, you know, it wasn't cheap, but I had all that removed and replaced, put new wood in here, and then put the aluminum sheet on the other side, and then screwed all that in with a rubber ramp. That's the problem with ramps. You've got a horse walking on it, so it's got to be heavy duty, and it's got to be able to support a lot of weight. But at the same time, you know, you got to be able to pick it up. So these springs are really tough, and you can get those springs replaced if they start looking like these in my girlfriend's trailer. And then, of course, some of the other things to look at is this is another girlfriend's trailer. Told you it's tough being one of my girlfriends. And I was looking at her trailer, and I was like, what the heck's going on here? They had used rivets to put the rubber that the horse walks on, but the rivets are tearing. They're too tiny. And so they were tearing on the rubber. And eventually what's going to happen is the rubber's pulling off. And of course, what happens is that happens when the horse walks up on the trailer, and then the ramp he slips and slides on the ramp, and then he doesn't want to go in the trailer anymore. And I don't blame him, because he's thinking, you're an idiot. You didn't replace my floor. So you got to take a real hard look at your ramps. And if there's any squishiness to your ramps, just go get them fixed, because that's usually what's happening. Okay, so I said we were going to talk a little bit about counting nuts. Oh, did I say that? So I always count nuts on people's wheels. And if you start taking a look at average wheels, you'll start noticing that the less nuts on the wheel usually means a smaller axle, and it usually also means a crappier quality axle. So, which means it's a cheaper trailer. So if you've got 5 nuts, it usually is somewhere around a 3,500-pound axle. So 2 times 3,500 is 7,000. So that trailer should not be more than a gross vehicle weight rating of 7,000 pounds. A lot of trailers are, you know, 3,000 or 4,000 pounds just sitting still. So if you load 2 horses in there and they happen to be 1,000-pound animals, you've basically come right to your gross vehicle weight rating right there. So be very careful on smaller numbers of nuts on your trailers. If you have them, it's mitigatable. You just make sure that you're not putting too much in the trailer, and of course do your maintenance. You can see that these people haven't done much maintenance here. All right, let's go on up in the number of lugs, or the nuts that go on these. This is 6, and this is my smaller horse trailer. This is my 2-horse trailer, and you notice that this is a 4,500-pound axle. So 6 rating could be as much as 5,700 pounds. I just happen to know that mine's a 4,500-pound axle rating. 45 times 2 is 9,000 pounds. Sitting still, that trailer is about 4,500 pounds, including the wood floor and everything. So I can still put approximately, I could put 4,000, a little bit over 4,000 pounds in there. So I can put my big 1,500 pound Appaloosa, and I can put 1,000 pound other horse in there, and I'm still nowhere near my gross vehicle weight rating. And then of course, up on the big trailers, you are really looking for 8 lugs. This happens to be on this particular trailer that I'm using for an example. This is 8 lugs and it's got a 7,000 pound axle. This is where things get scary or difficult. Let's put it that way. Some trailers have a 7,000 pound axle. Some with 8 nuts also have a 12,000 pound axle. So if you think you've got 12,000 pound axles, which would give you 24,000 pounds total gross vehicle weight rating, but you actually have 7,000 pound axles and you've put a whole lot more weight in those trailers, you can imagine where the problem becomes. So you gotta look. You gotta look on the plate on the trailer. You gotta look at the actual axle rating for your trailer, because all those things can differ. This is what I was talking about. I know. I'll show you in a second. So while you have your truck and trailer up on things, I'm not trying to make mechanics out of anybody. I am not a mechanic, guys. I've just learned a lot. I've done a lot of reading over the years, and I've seen lots of these issues. So what we're going to do is, while we've got our trailer up on blocks to look at the floors and look at all these other things, we're going to make sure that we have somebody check our brakes for wear. Now, the first thing is, you should have 2 axles, should have 2 brakes on each side. It is amazing to me how many cheap horse trailers I've found that only have brakes on 1 set of axles. You know why? Because they're expensive. And guess what? There's also adds weight. So if you're having one of these light horse trailers, they try to cheat on the weight by not putting axles on both sides. Are you kidding me?
That sounds crazy.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, but there are also one axle trailers out there too for horses, which is insane. There's not too many of them, but it's amazing to me the kinds of things that people do. So, you know, your brakes, have somebody that knows brakes. They should have to take that drum off of the brake and take a look at it. Make sure your pads. It's just like your car. You've got the exact same situation here. And I'm not the expert. I just know that it's important. So I go take pictures of my stuff while you want to talk about making them nervous. When you say, hey, I need you to do whatever on my thing. And while it's off, I'm going to come take pictures. And they go, ooh, and guess what? They probably do a better job. I don't know. Like I said, I'm friends with that guy. This is why you lubricate those wheel bearings, okay? When we were talking about, this is the actual spindle coming off of the axle. That's that you can actually see it. And this is the bearings fit in here on the spindle. And that's the part that has to be lubricated well. And this little nipple thingy here is at the end of the axle. And that's where it just seals. It's a dust cover that keeps the lubrication in the end of that. If it doesn't work, this is what happens. The wheel bearings have actually seized, the brakes seized because the whole thing got dry and there wasn't enough lubrication. When that seizes, then basically the entire wheel assembly can come off of the spindle, which is awful. It's awful for your trailer. It's awful for the horses on the trailer, because obviously then there's not as much support. But the other thing it's awful for is if your entire wheel with your tire comes off at 80 miles an hour, you can kill someone. Not just you can kill somebody else. So it's already bad enough that, you know, it's going to hurt your trailer, but you don't want to kill somebody else. So that's why lubricating the wheel bearings is really important to do. And this is an example. This is one of the bearings that goes, this is my horse trailer right here. And that's one of the bearings that was inside my, inside there around the spindle of the axle. And it's getting a little old. So the guy was like, hey, let me get a picture of that. And he's going to put a new bearing in there. They're like $30. It's not that expensive. And then he's going to lubricate that entire wheel bearing assembly and then put the dust cover back on it. Okay. So that's what you're actually looking at. And if you, like I said earlier, if the lubrication in here is not sufficient and it starts to get really oily, you'll actually see sprays of, it'll radiate out from the center of the oily stuff that shows you, hey, there's going to be a problem. And of course, the worst case, really, it's bad enough that you lose a wheel, but sometimes what happens is it gets so hot,
Catches on fire, right?
actually catch on fire.
Yeah.
And then it can catch your trailer on fire, and sometimes you don't even know about it. So since we're talking about fire,
I have one question come
yes,
through
go ahead.
real quick. Louina wants to know, where could we find that plate on a trailer normally? If it was a bumper pull or gooseneck, like where could we normally find it?
It should be on the left hand, the driver's side in America, somewhere usually on the nose or somewhere in the very front section of the trailer, somewhere close to the hitch.
Okay.
And sadly, over time, you may just find a silver thing that you can't read anymore. But there's many of the manufacturers actually stamp it with a metal stamp, and then you can find that. If not, you may actually have to take it to a trailer dealership and see if they can look at the axles and see if there's a stamp on the axles, so you know what the stamp, the weight is. Many of them, the UV light just destroys the stamps. So what we want you to do is mount a fire extinguisher in both your truck and your trailer. In every single vehicle, you need to have a fire extinguisher just for your own, safety. This one right here is mounted in the horse trailer. Notice the other thing that is mounted in there is the spare tire. Okay, if you do not mount a spare tire in your truck, if you just lay it in the horse trailer, I have a picture of a rescue they had to do where a horse actually was pawing and managed to paw the spare tire that was sort of laying in the front of the trailer, and then put his foot through this hole.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then they managed to somehow just bend that metal. They were inside the trailer trying to bend the metal. So it needs to be mounted. You don't want it rolling around. You don't want your horse putting his foot through it, those kind of things. And then also mount your fire extinguisher, and preferably right inside the door, so it's easy to get a hold of, so you can grab your fire extinguisher and then assault the fire wherever it may be. You will notice that this one was in a horse trailer that burned, and they had the fire extinguisher, but it was so hot by the time they realized they didn't even have time to remove the fire extinguisher.
Okay, Karen is asking, what type or rating of extinguisher should we have? Are you going to cover that?
So in general, there's lots of different kinds of fire extinguishers. You do not want a kitchen fire extinguisher. You want an ABC, which is the 3 different kinds of combustible materials, and it can also deal with boiling liquids, and it can also deal with the kinds of things that combustible inside this trailer. So ABC extinguishers are usually what we find, and 10 pounders. So what you buy at Walmart is usually a 5-pounder. You want something a little bigger than that. This is a horse trailer. You might have to put out a larger fire, so you want to make sure that you've got that. You'll notice this is mine in my trailer, and what I do is the little pin, that's what they did here. They used a little like a zip tie. I just used a piece of duct tape, because you don't want the pin, when you're driving down through the trailer, you drop things on it, you accidentally kick it, you do all those things. You don't want to lose the pin. So I duct tape the pin in there so it stays there. And then of course, it's supposed to be mounted inside the trailer where it's easy to get to. You really need to be able to get to it, but I know what happens. It happens in my trailer. You set stuff down in front of it. Next thing you know, you can't even see the fire extinguisher. So, but it's an important part of your safety kit. So 10-pound fire extinguisher, ABC.
Okay. And Janae has a really good tip for us guys. She says, when you buy your horse trailer, when it's new, take a picture of that panel and then just save a copy of that picture. And that way, 10 years down the road, you'll still have the information. So good tip.
Yeah, or print out the picture and put it with all your paperwork, your thing. That would be a great way. Very good point. Yeah, because then you'd have it. Because otherwise you're going to lose it. You know how that is. It's just the way it is. I don't know if you guys know it or not. There's also somewhere underneath your trailer, your VIN number. If you can't find your VIN number, it's welded underneath your trailer somewhere, usually on one of the frame mounts. It's just like trucks. If the VIN number, the vehicle identification number, is in several places in your vehicle, it's the same way in your trailer. It's there somewhere. You just got to crawl around on your belly like a reptile, and you'll eventually find it with a flashlight. Okay, this is why. In this case, the fire started in the towing vehicle in the wheel. The bearing got really hot on the towing vehicle, started a fire in the truck. Of course, they're trying to respond to that. They're not really thinking about what could happen. And next thing you know, the fire has spread to the trailer. This is worst case scenario. This is on the side of the interstate. You're trying to deal with the vehicle fire. These things move so fast, especially once it gets into the engine compartment, and then you have fuels and those kind of things. The entire thing it's just crazy. So we want to try to prevent that, but at the same time, it is not worth your life. You want to try to put it out with a fire extinguisher. It is not worth your life. If you talk to fire department people, they will tell you there's many cases where people have gotten severe injuries or died trying to save animals, save their children, save all kinds of things when they went back into a burning car, a burning trailer, a burning house. It's not worth it. So talk to your local fire department, and they'll teach you how to actually use your fire extinguisher, and they'll do it for free. We do it all the time for locals. Okay, so what does that trailer look like the next day? And part of the thing that's I'm not saying that this particular trailer was cheap, but I will tell you that we make many of our choices for trailers based on what we think we want or what we think is cool. And trailer manufacturers prey on that. They have their little logos, and they have everything all pretty in the living quarters, and they have all those kind of things. And I look at it and I go, is it safe for my horse? That's the whole point of my trailer. I want it to be safe for my horse. So I try not to even look at the living quarters and all those kind of things. But when you are looking at living quarters, you do need to take a look at how they have done some of, especially if you have, ovens or gas appliances or anything in that vehicle. A lot of people have gasoline inside their horse trailers. I'm not a big fan of that. They'll put diesel containers inside their horse trailers, all those kind of things. So just take a look at that, knowing that those kind of fires can be horrific. Now, going back to the whole thing of expense, people think that, if they spend enough, it's going to be safer. I am not making fun of Platinum trailers, but you can see the name of that thing, and Platinum trailers are, they're expensive, and in general, they seem to be well done trailers. But I do wonder when I see this kind of damage on that speed of a wreck. So I already know what this truck weighs, gross vehicle weight of 26,000 pounds. So at 5 miles an hour, it slammed into this in a lot of fog. But I go, why isn't there a better bulkhead here for this trailer? I mean, that's 5 miles an hour. I've seen lots of horse trailers that have been hit from behind. And at that speed, there is no excuse for that much damage to be on that. Again, I'm not an engineer. I wasn't there. I'm not making fun of their trailers. I'm just saying
things that make you go,
yeah, if I'm spending $85,000 on a trailer, I probably expect to have a little bit more bulkhead and a little bit more protection of my animals that are inside that trailer. And one of the horses actually got killed in this trailer wreck. So
wow.
Anyway, so part of that goes back to, how do we teach people how to drive trailers? And that comes down to learning to drive your rig safely. Your rig with your truck and your trailer, and do it before you load it up with horses. Take it out, take it in a parking lot, get some cones and practice. Because when you start asking your friends, hey, who taught you to drive your trailer? Most of my friends say, oh, well, my dad taught me, or my mom taught me, and they weren't CDL drivers either, okay? Or, hey, I just got my truck and trailer and took it out and started driving it. And that is not appropriate. Think about it. Pony Club, do they teach us how to drive trailers? Nope. Does 4-H teach you how to drive trailers? Nope. And they will never teach you how to drive trailers, because that's a liability issue big time if you had a problem. They'll teach you how to wrap a leg. They'll teach you how to do all this other stuff, but they don't teach you that. And I really can't blame them, because there's a expectation of liability there, right?
Mhm.
So we have to do it ourselves. It's in other countries, it's regulated. If you have a trailer in the UK, you have to go take a test. You have to take
Wow.
all these things, but we don't do that here. Under 10,000 pounds, nobody does anything. And of course, every once in a while, Angie, I'm sure you've seen it on Facebook, every once in a while, DOT starts making noises that, they're going to actually start
Yes.
checking those big 4-horse trailers. And everybody goes, oh my God, I've got to have a CDL. Oh my God, oh my God. And I go, well, if we don't get better at what we're doing, I don't blame them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, do you think they really want to deal with all these crazy horse people and the old people that drive RVs? Are you kidding me? They are not going to start looking at us. I really don't think they're going to look at us, because then they'd have to deal with everybody that drives to Florida in the winter. And they don't want to do that.
Yeah. And if anybody was going to check, it would be Florida. They're kind of serious down there.
That's right. They're pretty serious.
Karen has another great question.
Okay.
She wants to know, is there any place you can take a trailer driving safety course? Does such a thing exist?
In the United States, there is not. You can take a CDL class. There's some that are sort of a dumbed down version of a CDL. Our fire department, they have to take an F license on. It's actually a test for driving fire department vehicles. It's not quite a CDL, but it's very similar to that. And I don't know, it's a couple $100. But actually in the United States, there's not really a good driving course. I wish there was, because guess what? The problems that we see with this is everybody that drives a boat trailer, a lawnmower trailer, any of those little crappy trailers. And guess what, Angie, what's behind all of this? U-Haul and all those other companies that make their money on renting you a trailer. Technically, they give you all the stuff. If you ever actually rent a trailer, we actually rented a trailer a couple of years ago to take some stuff to a friend's house. And one of the ones where you drive the car onto the trailer, and a little dolly thing. You should see the freaking paperwork. It's like this thick. You're signing your life away that they've told you you're supposed to do this and you're not supposed to do that and you're not supposed to do that. And I go, yeah, but nobody ever reads it. They just want to get out the door. So they are doing whatever they do. And then we pay for it. Somewhere around 1,400 people a year die. People die associated with trailers, things that come off of trailers, trailering problems. We don't have really good numbers, but that's what we seem to be able to get out of the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, and some of their numbers. So this is a good example. This is quite a few years ago, actually, but if you have a wreck, I'm going to find you, because if it goes on social media, I'm going to find it, because I pull it into my data. I've been pulling this stuff for 25 years and I learn a lot. For example, look at this right here. I can tell you what happened with that truck and trailer. They were coming around this curve and it's a ramp and they were going too fast and the chains are attached, but guess what wasn't attached?
The gooseneck. How
they
did
didn't
that
drop the pin. The coupler drops down on the ball like this, and then there should be a safety pin that drops in there, and they didn't do it. So the cables are attached, or the chains, and it rolled over because they were going too fast around the curve. Now, what's really interesting about that is these are the same incident. The pictures that, this is overview from either a drone or from a helicopter, and in the thing that they asked, they said that they didn't really know what happened. And I'm like, it's on a ramp. I know what happened. You were going too fast for conditions. Trailers don't randomly just roll over if you're not doing those things. And sadly, one of these horses had to be euthanized for that. They were driving too fast for conditions. So that's part of our problem. That's part of our training. We need to get better at doing those kind of things. So by the time you got good tires, a good trailer, you've matched your towing vehicle to the trailer, and then you don't drive too fast for conditions, there's probably thousands of people that were out there on that same day driving with a horse trailer. I see them all the time on the interstate, and most of them don't magically just roll over. So something happened. And that's why we don't call them accidents anymore. We call them incidents, we call them wrecks, we call them crashes, but we know that there's always a fundamental cause that causes these kind of things. So learning to drive your rig safely.
I have two quick questions.
Yeah.
Joe wants to know, you know how cars have like a 5-star safety rating? They go through those crash tests and they get rated.
Nothing for trailers.
No such
Nothing says
thing.
trailers.
Okay.
No such thing. Okay, there's no such thing. Not only that, there is not a single horse trailer manufacturer, boat trailer manufacturer, lawnmower maker, anything that has ever even done anything on bulkheads or any of those kinds of things in trailers, ever, period, zippo. There was one lady, and she's long since dead, sadly, over in New Zealand. She made a trailer that was a rear face trailer, and she'd actually taken one of their trailer frames and took it to a engineer and had him do some safety ratings on the bulkhead of that trailer. That was 35 years ago, something like that. There's a guy in Australia right now who is working really hard on trying to get, you can imagine it's expensive. You've got to have some trailers to be able to crash some trailers. Yeah. Tomas and I, my ex-husband that started all this stuff with me, we got a trailer given to us by a lady, and we took it to the Michelin test track and we let it go at 65 miles an hour, pull the pin and let the trailer go at 65 miles an hour without a horse in it, without all that stuff. And we couldn't get it to wreck. It would go about a quarter of a mile and just slow down and get in the grass and stop. We're like, dang it. Because there's no, on the Michelin test track, it's perfectly flat and the grass is flat on both sides. There's no ditches, there's no power poles, there's not even any real crowning to the road. It's perfectly flat. So we were like, damn it. I mean, that didn't work either. So, and we were filming it, right? And we were hoping that we could make it crash. We couldn't make it crash. So it's actually pretty hard to do this, is my point. Based on what we see, I roll a lot of trailers with ropes, and it's always amazing to me how far it has to get over before it'll actually fall over. And of course, the horses add to the weight in the floor too.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so
this kind of goes
go ahead.
into Luina's question. She wants to know, is there any way that we can tell by examining a trailer, looking at it, obviously, because there's no safety ratings on these things, that we can tell if it has a better bulkhead or not? So how can we tell if we're going to buy a trailer or something like that, if it's one that probably won't crumple on impact? Is there any way?
If you, there's really no way. It really comes down to walking around with a welder, and he'll tell you, if you see rivets, just stay away from it. Any European made trailer, I'm just going to say this right now, that one that had the axles that fell off, that's a European made trailer. Okay. If it's a European made, this is Rebecca's personal opinion based on all the things that I've seen. I can't name names, but any of those European type trailers that are made of fiberglass, just cut them, burn them, do something else with them. Do not buy them, because they are not made. They are made to put behind a Subaru and do less than 55 miles an hour. Most of those roads in the UK are less than 55 miles an hour, and they're also this wide. So they're made to go really slow and be really flexible. And they've got some good things that they do with those trailers, but they are not appropriate for putting it 70 miles an hour on an American interstate. It's just not. Sadly, okay. That's the problem. Now, and I know that a lot of the horses that you guys are handling are coming from those European countries, and they're going to say our trailers are great. And I go, yes, in your environment that may work, but you take that same trailer and you put it out here on our interstates, it doesn't work.
Now, is it true when you're looking at a trailer and you're looking at the welds on the trailer, if they have sort of sanded those down or polished them so that they look prettier, that they're degrading the integrity of the weld? Is it better to leave them unpolished, unfinished?
If you talk to welders, they have different opinions on those kind of things. I am not a welder. I will just tell you, take a welder with you when you're, or somebody that's good at looking at trailers, when you're going to look at a used trailer or a brand new trailer, and just take yourself a piece of plastic or a tarp and crawl underneath the trailer. That's where we see a lot of the sins, is underneath the trailer, okay, more than up above. Because if you can see it, people are used to looking for it. This one, I'm going to show you some pictures of some of those things too.
Okay.
Things to think about. I look at trailer wrecks and try to think about how can we translate that to safety. So actually, if you take a look at this trailer floor, that looks pretty dang good. There's quite a bit of support, right? But if you look at this, the trailer has actually lifted the truck off the ground. So it's still attached to either the chains may have wrapped around, but it's actually still attached to the truck. But I'm betting, look at this trailer. It's at least a 3-horse slant. It may be a 4-horse. Why would we ever make a 3-horse slant with a living quarters and attach it to non-dually truck? I mean, I don't know if that's a 150, 250, or 350. It looks like a 150 or 250, but it's not even a dually. And you're pulling something this big. And let's talk about mismatching vehicles.
Oh, I love that when you see the truck is way up here because they've got a lift kit on it, and then it's a bumper pull, and it's like.
And then they've got like a hitch that steps down, and they do all these crazy things. It's awful.
Yeah.
So what I want you guys to do is get yourself a picture of your trailer, especially with all its nice little reflective on it. And then what I want you to do is I want you to walk behind your trailer, open the doors, take a picture of the back of your trailer, and then print it out on a 5x8 or 8 by 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then take a look at it and imagine your trailer on the left, on the right, on the roof. You'll know what your trailer looks like because every single trailer looks different. So the trailer we're looking at here is over, this is the same trailer as this one. It's over on the left-hand side. So what happens to your windows, your access points, your dividers, all those things inside your trailer if you turn it on the right or the left? You know, that's the way to think about these kinds of things, is how would my trailer look? And then what can I do to try to minimize these things? One of the first sins that a lot of people have, sadly, this horse, she ended up flipped over and she's got her leg between 2 of those dividers.
Ouch.
And one of the dividers has failed. And why do the dividers fail? Because there's a little cotter pin. There's a pin that holds the sleeve of my cat is so excited I'm home. He won't leave me alone. The cotter pin goes, the pin goes down in this sleeve, and then there's a little cotter pin at the bottom that holds it in there, right? Well, people get lazy because they've removed they were moving the lawnmower last week. So they took all the dividers out, or they were moving the kid to college or something in the horse trailer, and they forgot to put the little cotter pin back. Well, when you roll it over, cotter pin's not there. So that pin drops out of the sleeve and then the whole thing falls down. So those can be problems, particularly in wrecks, but those are the kinds of things that we look at. So I'm going to use this as one example. Guys, there is no app, there is no easy way to handle these kinds of things. But if you, my husband calls these towing tundras, and there's another one that starts with a T, Titans, towing Titans, and he uses his Georgia accent, right? Because I know this person probably thought this is a big enough truck, but that is a big 3-horse slant Lakota. That is a big trailer. And if I go back and find out what is the gross vehicle weight rating of a Lakota 3-horse pull aluminum trailer, its empty weight sitting still without anything in it is 4,550 pounds. Its gross vehicle weight rating, which is 4,500 pounds, 4,550 pounds with nothing in it. Then you load 3 horses, that makes it, let's just say they're 1,000-pound horses for easy add, okay? So now we've got 7,550 pounds, and then we put some hay bales in the front, and then we put all our other stuff that we're going to haul with us in the front, and then we take some of the water because the horse doesn't like the water from somewhere else. He's got to have water, and then we put all this other crap in the front of our trailers. Guess what? Now the trailer is very, very close to its gross vehicle weight range. Okay, so then let's take a look at, this is where it gets complicated. If you look up a towing Tacoma with a tow package, that its curb weight is almost 6,000 pounds.
Wait, it's a Toyota Tacoma, not a Tundra? Oh, boy. Okay, now I see the problem.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the gross combination weight rating for these things, the max on this should be 16,000 pounds. So 16,000 pounds for the combination weight rating means the 10,840 pounds from your trailer and the 6,000 almost pounds curb weight of your truck. That does not even include the people in the trailer, in the truck. So guess what? it's not matched correctly. And this was a single vehicle wreck, and I bet it was, because if anything changes, you have to apply the brakes under duress, something runs out in front of you, or you're trying to avoid a wreck or something. You don't have any room for failure, is what I'm saying. There's no grace period. There's no grace in these kinds of things. So that's where we get ourselves in problems. And of course, I promise you, and I'm not making fun of Lakota. Lakota's actually got some pretty good trailers. Every single manufacturer has their really good trailers, they have their medium trailers, and then they have their crap trailers. And every single manufacturer has them. You got to find them. Generally, if they're cheaper, they tend to be crappier. If they say light, they're usually crappier, but that's not always true. But every single manufacturer has this exact same thing. They'll give you the little, your little owner's manual. And if you look through it, I just cut and paste a whole bunch of the danger, danger, warning, danger, danger, warning, 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 right? It goes on for 36 pages in this particular owner's manual, okay? And you know what that is? That's covering their ass. That's what that is. It's not educational. If you actually read it, it would be pretty educational, but most people never read it and they have no idea. So what they're doing is they did everything that could go wrong and they put it in this little crappy book, and then they give it to you, and you sign on your life away, and you drive it off the lot. And they're like, too bad, not our problem anymore. Mm-hmm. It gets frustrating. So it's really complicated when you look at any kind of truck. I know that you guys can access this afterwards, so you're more than welcome to do so. That's why I put the information on here. It's even complicated trying to pull what these definitions are. It took me a long time to get really good definitions for this. So the gross vehicle weight rating, and what it actually is the sum of the vehicle weight, including everything in the vehicle, any optional equipment installed on the vehicle. So if you've got an F-150 with a towing package, it's going to be different than a standard F-150. If you've got an F-150 with all the fancy pinky finger stuff in it, and the fancy AC and the fancy leather seats and the fancy all that other crap, guess what? It weighs different than just the standard 150. So then you have to take a look at that, and then the tongue weight of the trailer. Well, the tongue weight is usually not on the sticker that we already talked about on the trailer. You have to look a lot deeper. Nobody can just find the tongue weight. You actually can weigh it yourself, but you have to go to the scale, and you have to have nothing in the trailer, and it's complicated to get the tongue weight even. So nobody knows their tongue weight either. So then you go to your gross combination weight rating, which is the weight of the trailer being towed, including the cargo in the trailer, okay? And then you add that with what is the maximum gross combination weight, including the occupants, the cargo, and all the stuff that's on the vehicle, plus the weight of the trailer. I mean, it's really complicated. So I got you guys a couple of examples here. This is a little bit more on steps for trying to determine the correct load limit for your trailers, okay? Just know that it's extremely complicated, and if you've got the stuff and you send them to me, I will try to help you figure it out. But there's no app, there's no easy way to do this. And I promise you, at the dealership, for either the trailer or the truck, they're not going to help, because guess what? They want to sell you a truck, and they want to sell you a trailer. They are not really interested in understanding this either. So you got to take a look at your VIN, take a look at that gross vehicle weight rating that we talked about. It's on that card, okay? This is trailer and tire loading information, and sometimes it will help you by saying the weight of cargo inside the truck should never exceed the number of, they'll have a particular number there, and how much weight or whatever. So what that means is in your vehicle, that will help you determine cargo. So people, all the stuff you put in your vehicle should never exceed whatever that weight is. And you will find that inside the driver's door. You can take a look inside the driver's door. On the door, you should have that placard, and it will tell you what your cargo is. Total weight of a fully loaded trailer cannot exceed the stated gross vehicle weight rating. Well, it can, but you're going to pay for it if you attach it to a vehicle and it's not appropriately matched. And we haven't even talked about whether or not it's flat or not, okay? A huge number of people are driving around with a current truck, the 2015 and up kinds of trucks, and especially if it's 4x4, they're really, really tall, and they have an older gooseneck, and they try to attach the gooseneck to the truck, and why not? Okay, and what they do is, if you look, when they're driving around in their truck, it looks like the gooseneck is hauling like this, right? Like the nose is high. If you take around, a huge number of people have that problem. Why? Because you can't lower the gooseneck enough. Even if you change the height of the gooseneck, there is actually a function on your gooseneck that you can lower it. But if you lower it too far, guess what happens? When you turn, you damage your truck. So people say, well, I don't want to do that. So they leave it up high. And then guess what happens? Back here, you're transferring most of your load to the back axle. And guess which set of wheels you're going to destroy faster? Your tires are going to blow first back here. You're transporting a lot more weight to that axle. If you're going to have problems with that axle, it's going to be back here. So a lot of people are doing that, and they're totally unaware. What you can do is you can actually have these blocked up so that your truck and trailer are matched and they're nice and straight. If you're on an asphalt road, get out, take a picture of your truck and trailer. Not at the house where you may have a wonky whatever, a nice flat road, get out and step further enough away that you can take a look at your truck and trailer. They should be nice and straight. Anyway, let's get back to this. So some examples here, okay? Inside the door of the truck, it tells you this is Ford Motor Company. It tells you that the gross vehicle weight rating on that truck is 7,850 pounds. If you take a look at the trailer, tire, and loading information, it tells you the combined weight of occupants and the cargo should never exceed 1,233 pounds. So if you got two people in the truck and you're going to pick up some rock in 50-pound sacks, you can never have more than 1,233 pounds. So that's not a lot. Okay, and that doesn't even take a look yet at the tongue weight of the trailer that you're trying to pull behind it. Okay, here is a trailer, and this trailer, you can take a look at what is in kilograms first, and then in pounds. You can take a look, it'll have all those details. So just like that lady said, take a picture of this, and then you'll have an idea of what actually is your rating on these. So 11,954 pounds or 5,427 kilograms is the gross vehicle weight rating for this particular trailer, for this VIN, and every single one of them is a little bit different. And it even, in this plate, it even tells you it's recommending that you have a 16-inch tire with 6 nuts, okay? Because they're going to have, if you took a look at the axles, that would be important too. So there's a lot of information that's out there, but reading those plates, a lot of people have never done it, and it's really complicated.
I have a bunch of questions.
I know there's a lot of math, so let me get through this example, and this may help. Okay. So I knew this was going to be tough because it's really complicated. Nobody has ever pulled this together for me, and I had to go find a lot of information on it. So if you look through this, about the combined weight rating of occupants and cargo should never exceed the XXX pounds on your vehicle's placard that you find inside the door. Okay, determine the combined weight of the driver, the passengers riding in the vehicle. Subtract the combined weight of the drivers and passengers from the combined weight on the placard. That gives you the amount of cargo and luggage capacity. For example, if you had the XXX on that driver's door said 1,233 pounds, just like we have in this example, 1,233 pounds right here, and there's 450-pound passengers in your vehicle, 450-pound passengers would be 600 pounds. So 1,233 minus your 600 pounds of passengers, you can tote 633 pounds of luggage. Okay. Angie, do you know anyone that can load more than 633 pounds of luggage in your vehicle? That's the problem.
I'm just trying to think, like, gosh, how would you get all the people and the luggage in there?
Exactly. And so when people are driving by you in their truck without even a trailer attached, they haven't even looked at the tongue weight yet. They're putting probably more passengers in the vehicle, more luggage and cargo and all those kind of things. I mean, if you go on a camping trip, a lot of people are probably exceeding all those things just in the truck, not even thinking about adding the tongue weight of the vehicle yet. Especially since they don't know what the tongue weight is, because you actually have to go get it, because for most of these things, unless it's in the owner's manual, you won't know what your tongue weight is actually being transferred to the vehicle. There is a cool little app. I don't have the name of that thing. I got a chance to see this at one of the things. There's a cool little app that you can use to actually measure your tongue weight. But generally what people do is take your trailer down to one of the 18-wheeler kinds of places, and they will help you try to figure out what your tongue weight is on your vehicle. And then they'll charge you about $100 for that too.
Oh, golly.
So determine the combined weight of your luggage and your cargo being loaded in the vehicle. That weight may not safely exceed that weight calculated above right here. If the vehicle is towing a trailer, the load from the trailer tongue weight is transferred to the vehicle. Then you have to consult the towing vehicle's manual to determine how this weight transfer reduces the available cargo and luggage capacity of your vehicle.
Okay, everybody's just like,
exactly. That's the whole point of this, guys. You've got to have your owner's manual for your trailer and the owner's manual for your truck to be able to do this. And when you go down and you buy your trailer, I promise you, you're going to ask, what most people do is they say, is this enough truck for that trailer? And the guy says, oh yeah, you're good.
Right.
He didn't know jack crap. And that's the point. None of us know what it really is for any of our vehicles. And none of us know what it really is for any of our trailers. And that's why I say your F-150 or your Tow-in Tundra or your Tow-in Tacoma is not enough. You need, for most trailers and most, even if it's 2-horse trailer, you really need a big truck. You need a dually. You need at least a 2500 if you don't have a dually, for most trailers. And the thing is, if you live in Florida and you drive on flat roads, you're probably okay most of the time until you're not, until you're under duress, when you need to be able to slow that trailer, when you need to be able to make a, some reactionary kind of thing. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble. And then of course, if it's raining or it's ice and snow and those kind of things. So the whole point of this was to give you the best that I can find on these challenges, and then have you pull your hair out, and then you got to go home and figure out how it goes on your vehicle. If you do take pictures of those things, send me an email and I will try to help you figure it out. It's not easy to figure out, because every single vehicle on the tow vehicle's manual is going to have a different way that they calculate that weight transfer to the vehicle for every single one. Overdo it with the vehicle, not with the trailer. Okay.
Okay,
so,
I have so many questions.
I know. Go ahead. I'll try to answer. Let's stay away from math. Do you guys get it? That the point is, it's really difficult to do. There's no app for this. Maybe we can find somebody that will do an app for this. And if you are pulling anything that's a large trailer with a small vehicle, I'm just going to tell you, you need a larger vehicle. Go ahead.
Louina wants to know about renting trailers. So I guess there's places you can rent trailers. I didn't realize that. But if you're going to rent a trailer, is there anything particular we should look at? Or I guess is it all these things we need to be doing that? Or
if you are renting a trailer and the truck, possibly you're going to be okay. If you're renting the trailer and attaching it behind your vehicle, just go with a larger truck. Borrow somebody's truck. Don't try to put it behind something that's a smaller vehicle. I see people pull things with SUVs all the time. Occasionally, there's an SUV that's heavy duty enough to actually pull a 2-horse trailer. But generally, most SUVs are just too small for doing that. And in my opinion, there's no car that's made to do this. Okay. Even Jeeps and those kind of things, they're just not heavy duty enough for pulling your trailer under duress, because that's what you're really looking at is, when I have a problem, can I stop it? When I have a problem, can I, do the things that I need to do to avoid an incident with my trailer.
Okay. The next question is, you probably heard this question before, but in general, which is safer, a bumper pull trailer or a gooseneck trailer?
Okay. Technically, okay, good question. So the problem with this would be a tag along or what they call a bumper pull. There's nothing that should be on an actual bumper of a truck. That's an old term, but we call them tag alongs now. The problem with this is it's all about the hitch. So that's why, in general, goosenecks, because the tongue weight is going into the truck, it's harder to screw up hitching it. With a tag along trailer, it's easier to screw up hitching it. If this is wrong, there's a lot of weight that's in the back of the towing vehicle. If you fail to drop the pin, if you fail to attach the chains, as long as you're going down the road and you don't have any duress, ice, snow, wet pavement, slamming on brakes, those kind of things. In general, there are many people who have driven their gooseneck trailer many, many miles, and they get there and they're like, holy crap, I forgot to drop the pin, and they were okay. There's not as much room for failure or problems with a 2-horse or a tag along trailer. I would prefer that any tag along trailer never be a 3-horse. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear me say that, but generally, unless you're driving it pulling with a dually, you shouldn't be pulling a 3-horse. That's really what happened for him, I'm sure.
Okay. What numbers would dictate the need for a dually truck? So I know that's kind of a broad question, but
yeah, it's a broad question. So if I was looking at, I would take a look at this plate, would determine how big my gross vehicle weight rating was on my trailer. And then of course you go back and take a look at a truck. If you're trying to buy a truck, let's just say you're trying to buy a truck, you look at this number and you say, hey, so basically that's 12,000 pounds. So I need a truck that's going to be able to give me a gross combined weight rating is what I'm going to be looking for. That's well over 12,000 pounds. It's going to be a dually. For 12,000, and that's the thing. For most of these trailers, it's going to be a dually, or it's at least going to be a 250. If that's not a dually, it's at least going to be a 250. And then that also needs to have the towing package. It needs to have the extra brakes. It needs to have the bigger radiators and all those kinds of things that it takes to be able to, I mean, if you live in Florida and you only drive in Florida, you may be okay. But the first time that anybody ever drives up into the Alleghenies or into the Appalachians or over the Rockies, oh my God. And all of a sudden you start going, man, I need a bigger truck. That's just the way it is.
Right, because so many people think it's about pulling the trailer, but the braking, the stopping of the trailer is really...
And not destroying your truck, because if you're pulling those trailers for lots of time on your smaller vehicles, you're really just straining the heck out of your vehicle, and you're not going to have it around as much. So why not get what you really need and leave it attached to your, I know people are like, I don't want a second vehicle. And I go, well, I know it doesn't get great gas mileage, and diesel is expensive these days, but get yourself a diesel truck, hitch it to your trailer, leave it attached, and drive your car around town instead of doing that. That's what I've had to do. And right now, I just went and got my truck today, and it had some fuel rail problem. It cost me $2,500. I do all the maintenance, but it's got 275,000 miles on it. I try to do all the right things, and sometimes you still got to sink money into it. But do I want to buy a new $85,000 truck? No. I'm going to keep doing the maintenance on it, right? So whatever, there's a weird calculus there, right?
Yep. Karen wants to know, what's the best place to go take our truck and trailer and have it weighed? Is there generally a good place to do that?
Yes. So if you take a look at where the truckers take their trucks and trailers, they usually have a weigh scale. Sometimes on Google, you can actually look for trailer weigh scale. And if you can't find one, ask at the local trailer guys. They'll know where you can do that. You can take your trailer down there and actually get it weighed if you don't already have a good weighting weight rating on your trailer. And you can do it two ways. You can take it down there and get it empty with nothing in it, and then you can load all your crap and your horses and everything else and go back. You'll have to pay for the second weight, but you can go down and do that and get an idea of how much it actually weighs with all your stuff in it. And it doesn't take long. Some of the big gas stations like Flying
Love's,
J and
Flying
stuff
J,
like that,
all those, they have them, right?
some of them will have them. Yeah.
Okay.
They also sometimes have, if you want to get your acid wash on your trailer for, cleaning it and stuff like that, some of those kinds of places will have good recommendations too.
Janae, she had our good idea before about the plates. She said you can also call the state police and ask the truck enforcement unit where the nearest truck scales are.
There you go.
Janae is in the know.
She is in the know. Awesome.
We have a question. Can we get a printout of these weight and load limit screens,
Yes.
like how to follow the steps? So yes, guys, we will
Yes.
get those. We'll put
We
them
will do
on the
that.
Fauna website where you registered for this webinar.
What I'll do tomorrow is I'll pull those and I'll get the links so that people can go. And like I said, it's complicated, but they can go through some of the things that I've gone through to try to figure that out. Some of it's from DOT, some of it depends on your state, some of it depends on the trailer manufacturers and the truck manufacturers, but I'll try to pull all that together. Okay, so
I got
let's
one more question.
Okay, sorry.
Is it better to rent a truck and trailer at the same time? Is it safer? Will they generally be matched?
That totally comes down to the truck and trailer rental place, but I would certainly think that if they are renting the truck and the trailer to you, that they have done the matching. I certainly would hope so.
Hope so.
When you start asking questions, you might find a different answer.
Okay, perfect.
So let's switch gears a little bit and take a look at our trailers. We already have a truck and trailer, and some of the things that happen with trucks and trailers that cause wrecks in the trailer, not even going down the road. How do your horses perceive your trailers? Now, there's some fancy trailers out there, and I go out there and I get in them and I have them drive them around the parking lot. Technically, it's illegal to go out on the roadway. So have them drive you around in a big parking lot, have them drive you around in the pasture or whatever. But if you do that, or on a dirt road where nobody's looking and technically it's illegal and all those things, but what you'll see is you'll see these things. So the point of that is you want to be able to know what's going on in your trailer. A really great way to do that is go ahead and sink the money into a good trailer camera monitoring system, so you can actually watch your horses while you're going down the road. A lot of people are getting into these days. Tori and Justin McLeod, they transport horses for people up and down, for all kinds of things, to shows, to they transport horses that have metabolic problems or neurologic problems, things like that, for veterinarians. They do all that stuff, and they have the ranch cam system. I invested in a ranch cam system myself. This is not product placement, but that's one that I have found, and they have found actually works, and you don't have as many problems with it. It's not cheap, but it works great. And the point of that is so that you know what's going on in the trailer. Because how many times you've been driving down the road, Angie, and you hear something, or you go, I wonder what that is. If there's really a problem, you need to know right then so that you can either pull off the side of the road, those kind of things. But you need, is it a minor problem? Is it a major problem? Do I need to stop right now? Or can I go a mile and get to a safe place, or get to a ramp and get the heck off the road, or whatever? Is the horse just having a fit with another horse? Or is it a horse that's reared up and put his foot through something? I mean, what's really going on here? So I'm a big fan of that. It's amazing to me how many trailers I go into that have chains jangling, things that are squeaking, that have not been lubricated. And you wonder why the horse used to load in this trailer and now it doesn't want to load. And I'm like, well, because it knows what's coming. It's awful. And then this is what you sometimes find. So a girlfriend of mine loaded her horse. We were going to go trail riding. and we turned right out of her driveway, and right out of the next couple things were rights. And then I had to take a left into the Starbucks. It's not my fault. And I had stopped at the stop sign and the car went by, and then I went to make the left, and I was going really slow. And there was a really bad sound in the trailer. And I was like, what the heck? So we stopped as we made the turn. We stopped. There wasn't any traffic, jumped out. We looked at her and the horses are just like standing there like nothing. And I said, I don't know what that was. We went down a little bit further. I started to make another left. I started to hear another sound. I was like, all right, you got to get in the trailer and you got to get a video. And this is the video she got inside my trailer at 5 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness.
That horse, there's something going on with her hind end. She's an older horse.
Yeah.
Like,
she can't balance it.
Let me run it one more time. This was a damning video.
Oh.
Never had a problem going to the right, but when she tries to support her weight on that left hind leg, she is almost in a panic.
Yeah.
And I never would have seen it if I hadn't had her back in there. So I know that's illegal, guys, but I'm telling you, that was a great way to realize. So we stopped the trailer in the parking lot. I called my husband, had him bring the other trailer and loaded our horses and took her horse back home. And I haven't put her horse back in my trailer. I don't know what was going on. I've never had a problem like that with my horses in this trailer, but I said, not putting her horse back in this trailer. It's just not worth it. If I had gone any faster, that horse was ready to fall down in that trailer. And then we really would have had a wreck. So,
I actually had that happen. And if it wasn't for, I was hauling a mare that was tied and she had a newborn foal that was loose in the box with her. And there was an accident on the interstate right in front of us. And there was nowhere for me to go. So I just had to stop as fast as I could. Well, I could see when that happened through the camera that the mare fell. And luckily she didn't try to get up, because I was afraid she was going to step on the foal, and there was nowhere for me to go. So I just had to patiently wait a few minutes till we could get off the interstate. But I knew what was happening because I had the cameras. So I think that they're invaluable if you're hauling horses.
Absolutely invaluable. You gotta have them, because otherwise you'd never know what's going on. Okay, so now we talked about nuts. Let's talk about balls a little bit. Try to keep you guys awake here. What I want you guys to do is go and get your flash on and look. This is the coupler underneath a gooseneck, okay? So you have to turn your phone with your flash and take a picture, take a couple of pictures to be able to get this. This is a trailer that I found up in Canada, and all that white stuff, I don't think they've put any lubricant on that trailer in forever. It's all rusted and it's basically wearing through. It's hard to tell in this picture, but it's basically wearing through the top of the coupler where it sits on the ball. And so it's just, as it goes along with no lubrication, it's just awful. Mm-hmm. And look at mine. This is mine. And I'm very proud of my coupler because I know about this trailer. It's at least 100,000 miles that I've hauled this thing. It's a 99. And the inside of the coupler looks great because we've worked really hard to make sure that we lubricate the ball. We make sure we maintain this. We minimize the rust and stuff in there. And after 100,000 miles, there's minimal damage to anything in that coupler. If your coupler looks like this, you need to replace the entire coupler on the front of your gooseneck. Just, it's not worth it. It's not worth taking a chance. If you're hearing the squeeze, 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 just go ahead and replace the gooseneck trailer coupler.
Okay, so how often should we put the lubrication on, and do you put it on the ball or do you put it inside? How do you do it?
Okay, hang on. I got some pictures for that. They're a little bit later in the thing.
Okay, so we'll get to that later.
Yeah, you're going to see that. It's all about lubrication. Okay, so other things that we see is how do we make sure that our emergency breakaway system, you guys probably have these boxes on your trailers. And this is a gooseneck and it's right up underneath the nose of the gooseneck. And if you have not replaced your battery in at least 5 years, you need to get a new battery. I really like these because the breakaway system has an actual test button on it. It's hardwired in. And so you can tell when it's charging and when it needs to be, when it's fully charged and when it needs to be recharged, when you need to put a new battery in there. A lot of people, the battery isn't even in here anymore. I don't know what happens to them, but I mean, it's like you've never had a battery in there. And so what happens is if the battery's not working and your breakaway, that's if the hitch fails at the level of the coupler and the ball breaks, the coupler fails, the pin drops off, and that separates in some way, the trailer chains aren't crossed, or the trailer chains are not sufficient. If everything in the hitch fails, then what's supposed to happen is it should pull, that breakaway system should pull out and engage the brake, but it has to have the battery working to be able to make that happen. So if you don't have a patent battery, then it's not going to do that. And what it'll do is once it separates from your truck, it will just freewheel down the road until physics brings it to a stop. Either it slams into something. Nightmare. Yes, and it kills other people. And that's the biggest problem. That's why you're supposed to have an emergency breakaway system on there. So other challenges that we see is while we're talking about chains, because obviously if we're talking about emergency breakaway systems, we need chains that work. Look at this piece of crap. I don't know what the heck Quality built trailers in Tennessee. They tack welded a dog chain onto, that is crap. I promise you that is not a rated chain. This is a gooseneck trailer. So that means it's at least 7,500 pounds, probably more than that. And if you look at the gross vehicle weight rating, you got, I can't see that, I put it over the actual, but 10,000 pounds. So 10,000 pounds, is that chain gonna stay with a little tack weld like that under duress where everything else has failed? Is that gonna stay there? No, it's not gonna stay there. And these are examples of just ridiculous examples that people have. This is run the chain through this little piece of crap that's tack welded on there. This is a pretty crappy little weld that's just been painted nicely. It's actually a decent chain, but I'm not sure that that's going to hold. These maybe are not, but look at the size of these chains. These chains are not very big for a gooseneck trailer. So then when you start looking at your chains, you're going to say, hey, I don't know what my chain size is. I know. That's because a rated chain has a stamp on it, but most of these chains will not have a stamp on it. You know why? Because a rated chain is about 70 bucks. Do they want to spend 70 bucks?
Writing this down.
Yeah, they don't want to do it, right? I've got some examples right here, okay? This is a nicely done, I like the way they did this one. So this is the chain is actually through this safety pin, which is a rated pin that is made for this size. And notice it has, that's the other side, but it gives you a better view of this. And that looks like a pretty heavy weld there. This is nicely done. And it's a stamped chain. In this case, it's a 14,000 pound trailer. It's a 7,000 pound chain. Times 2 is 14,000 pounds. And then it also has the heavy duty hooks on it. So those are positive closure hooks that once you attach them to something, they're going to actually stay there. That's what we're looking for. The whole game of this is to keep the trailer from leaving the towing vehicle. If your pin is not in your coupler and it comes off and it drops down in the bed of your truck, I promise it's going to be a religious experience, but it shouldn't cause the truck and trailer to become disconnected. That's the whole game of chains. They're supposed to be connected, right? And I like the positive closures. This happens to be an example of a tag along, but I like this example here. These are positive closure chains. They look nice and heavy duty. They are crossed underneath here so that if the nose of the coupler comes undone, it'll drop into these chains here. It's probably going to run underneath your vehicle. It's probably going to push you down the road a little bit. You're probably going to say some bad words, but it's not going to have the truck and trailer separated. I've had it happen to me, fortunately at home, because I was dumb back then and I didn't understand how this whole hitch system works, which is why I got more serious about it, because I had a trailer, I was pulling uphill, fortunately, and I had messed up the attachment of the hitch, and it came unloose and it dropped down into the cross chains and it went on my truck. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? And it was religious, but guess what? Nobody got hurt. There was no horses in it. Fortunately, it was a lawnmower trailer, but it's really a big thing. And we've got to understand how these work better.
Now,
So
the chains, if you go back to that picture, they're facing a certain way. Someone's
uh,
asking a question, does it
I'm
matter which way they face, forward, backwards?
I have been told that you're supposed to have it this way. I don't know for sure. I'd have to ask Robin Ridgway. She's an engineer that has helped me with a lot of these things. I would have to ask her if that
I
orientation
mean, it
matters.
seems logical. Should be that way because of the way that
Yeah.
it's
I do
designed.
not know. I would have to ask Robin Ridgway. And one of her publications, there are actually two of her publications, are some of the things that we're going to reference in this the stuff that I send you tomorrow.
And Karen wants to know, and I've never heard of this. What are your thoughts on chains versus twisted wire? I've never seen twisted wire. That doesn't
There are
sound good to
cables.
me.
There are cables. They're heavy duty cables. I don't have a problem with the cables. The appropriately rated cable should do the same job as the chain. In some states, it's not as legal as far as I understand.
Okay.
But the nice thing about the cables is they have a tension on them, so they don't drag. And that's always the problem, is if these chains are not exactly the right length for your truck and trailer, and they drag on the ground, or you're on something that can
Go over
cause
a
them to
bump or
drag,
something.
it can cause damage to the chain. And what's supposed to happen is as soon as you have damage to any of your chains, you're supposed to replace them. But there you
Okay.
go. So let's go to trailer hitch hell, since we're going to
Oh boy.
Halloween
It's like
this
a
week.
game show.
Yes, well, it is, because I promise you, I want you guys to go to Lowe's, Home Depot, Rural King, Tractor Supply, any of those kinds of places, and just sort of hang out in the aisle that has these. And when somebody comes in to buy them, what they'll do is they walk up and they're like, they don't know what they're looking at. There's all this stuff and the glitz and glamour. And then let's just say, just for an example, that you've been told to replace your ball. Okay, so your ball on your hitch would be underneath this coupler right here. And you've been told that this is a pretty, about every 10 years, you should replace your ball. If it's been more than 10 years on your truck, you should replace your ball. And so you go down to that place and you say, oh my God, I've got to replace my ball. Well, first of all, you got to know what size the ball is. So is it a 2-inch? Is it a 2 5/16 inch? I hope to God it's not a 1 7/8 or a 1 5/16, because those are too small. It really should be a 2 5/16. But anyway, if you have 2-inch, then that's what you get. Okay, because it's got to match your coupler. So if you got 2-inch coupler, 2-inch ball, 2 5/16 coupler, 2 5/16 inch ball. But when you go there and you look at, let's just say it's going to be a 2 5/16 inch ball, and you go there and you go, 2 5/16 inch ball, and okay, there's one, and this one has a tongue weight of 7,000 pounds, and it's $19.99. And then you look at the one next door, and it's a tongue weight of 12,000 pounds, and it's $49.99. Which one do you think the average person is going to buy? The $19.99 one. Okay, but they don't know what their tongue weight is on their trailer, so they don't know if that tongue weight is important anyway. That's the problem. That's where we get ourselves in trouble, because they have all these things, but if you don't really know what you're looking at and you haven't figured out all these weight ratings, then you really don't know what you're looking at. And this is the example of, you can have the different drop on your trailer for where to try to get it nice and level. They have them, but they also have some ridiculous ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the point of that is, then what you do is you go ask the employee, who is a 25-year-old. No offense to anyone who might be 25 here, but the point is, there's some 25-year-old that doesn't know any of this stuff, and they'll try to help you because that's their job, but they don't really know what they're talking about either. So we got to get better at this, and maybe we can get somebody to make an app for this. I don't know. Okay, we said I was going to show you a picture of lubrication.
Yes, perfect.
So in general, WD-40, no matter what I grew up with, it is a degreaser. It is not a lubricant. So you need a lubricant that is made for your trailer ball. And you can tell this poor thing has never, ever been lubricated in its entire life. It's unconscionable. If yours looks like that, you guys need to take these and throw them away and get yourself a new ball, because what's going to happen here is you've actually got micro cracks. You've got severe scraping damage that's on that. It's going to do damage into your coupler and you can't even tell. But it also destroys this ball, those micro cracks. If you talk to the engineers, they'll tell you that they worry about that. It can actually fracture. And then, of course, if it hasn't had any lubrication, probably neither has this had any lubrication, which means that there's water and things have gotten in there, and that will eventually destroy this hitch, and the whole thing can fail. So you can see it's happening here. I walk around in the parking lot at various places and I just look at people's stuff and I grab pictures of it. And this is a crappy example of something that's never been lubricated and it's just waiting to fail. Same way here, probably. This one actually doesn't look that bad. It's probably been lubricated, but find a lubricant. Usually it goes into the graphites and the white grease and those kind of things. If you go and ask at the O'Reilly's or Advanced Auto Parts and those kind of places and tell them what you're trying to do, they will have a variety of different lubricants that you can use for that. I have one that I got on Amazon and it's actually made for this job. So it tells you it is made to lubricate the ball on a trailer. So you can do a little bit of things. Okay, safety pins. You got to have the safety pin. You see this? There is a pin that goes right through here. This is the other side of it. That pin goes through here, and then this cotter pin holds it in place. Over time, those pins have to be lubricated and they can fail also. So you should replace those about every 10 years. If you have not replaced your pin lately, go ahead and get a new pin and get a locking pin. That little crappy cotter pin can fall out over time, and I don't like to have those in there for very long. So get yourself a locking pin.
How often should we?
Here's an example.
Ball?
Huh?
How often should you grease your ball?
It should be greased every single time. You may not, if you leave, it depends on, okay. So it depends. Some people, they never ever unhitch their truck and trailer because they leave it attached all the time because they're very fortunate and they have a truck and trailer that's patent. So at that point, you probably need to lubricate that every 5,000 to 10,000 miles. Okay. If you unhitch your trailer and you run around your truck around town and it's getting rained on and all those other things, then you need to re-lubricate it before you hitch again the next time you go to hitch.
I think a lot of people are not doing that.
It's true. I mean, I find these things all the time. This is that locking pin I was talking about. So this is actually a master lock. It sticks through the receiver and holds this hitch in the receiver. So believe it or not, that little pin right there is everything that keeps your truck and trailer attached on your hitch. So that pin needs to be a
Very
good
important.
pin. And I like a locking pin because nobody can steal it. There's another example of a locking pin on another one. And this is made so that somebody can't, this one, somebody theoretically could get in there with a saw or something and remove it. That's not going to happen on this one. This is a stainless steel version. Obviously needs to be lubricated, but that's a stainless steel version. And then the other thing I was going to talk about here is if you have one of the sliding couplers that, the coupler fits down and then you have this sliding nose that slides over here. That's what I have right here. You have to have your pin, whether it's a tag along or it's a gooseneck, there's a safety pin somewhere that's going to keep this from sliding back. That's its job. And then cross your chains, of course. So
Karen's asking, is wheel bearing grease a good ball lubricant? I would guess, I don't know.
Maybe I would ask. These days lubricants are made for specialty jobs. So I would ask somebody that actually knows. I am not a mechanic and I am not an expert on those lubricants, but I would ask, or you can do some looking at the whatever it says on the side of the thing. It always goes, even in the fire service, it always goes back to manufacturer's recommendations. If the manufacturer says that's what it's for, or you can pick up the phone and call their the salesperson and say, hey, this is the thing that I'm doing this for. What they'll usually do is they'll say, oh, well, that one won't work, but this more expensive one will. There you go. Okay. So why are we doing all these things? Whether we're taking care of our, replacing our tires every 5 years, or we're doing all these kind of things. There is nothing more frustrating out there on the side of the road than having a tire fail. And then, of course, being on the side of the road is one of the most dangerous places you can be for your own safety, as well as for your animal safety. And then, of course, while you're trying to change the tire on your truck or your trailer, the things that you're going to need to be able to do that. So it's nice to have a drive-on chock. These chocks tend to be about 4 inches high. I like to have a couple extra 2x4s or 2x6s that I can add onto that, because sometimes I can't get my truck and trailer high enough off the ground to actually pull the wheel if I'm having to change the tire. So you can put another 2x4 right underneath here, and that will cause the trailer. Those drive-on chocks are great, but you need to sometimes add a little bit more height to them. If you take a look, this is, I forget the one that I bought, but this one's great. It's 6 inches high, so it gets this truck, this trailer nice and high, so that I can pull the trailer tire off the other side. So take a look at some of those drive-on chocks that are out there that are, they sell these for horse people, and I'm like, I don't think that's enough. I like that nice big one to drive up on. Then you're going to need some lubricant. This is a silicone lubricant in this case. You may need a degreaser to be able to get the old grease off while you're trying to do something. You may need whatever the tire tool is for your truck may not work for your trailer. Sometimes the nut size on the lug is different for trailers than it is on the truck. So you need to have the tire tool for your trailer that matches your trailer, make sure it fits. And then, of course, unless you are, I'm 200 something pounds, we're not going to talk about that. And I have this bar in my truck so that I can add it onto my trailer tire and give myself some more oomph in case I have to take off a lug. Because the problem is, you go down to get your new trailer tires put on, and the guy uses a torque wrench and goes broop, 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 and puts on those lugs. And if he doesn't back them off a little bit, you will play heck trying to get those off on the side of the road. So it gives you a little bit of leverage if you have a steel pipe to be able to slide on there.
Now,
and then, of course,
if you can carry an impact wrench, and you're,
that'd be great. That would be great.
Right?
My husband would love it if he had an impact wrench to take along.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing is, if you are hauling across the country, what I pack for going trail riding stuff is a lot different than what I would pack going around. I actually take an air compressor with me if I go across the country. So you can run those kinds of tools. So, and then you got to think about how I'm going to power the air compressor and those kind of things. But man, I'm one of those people, I try not to have anybody else do stuff for me. I like to be able to do it myself, so I don't have to wait till the tow truck gets there to try to fix it, right?
Yep.
Anyway, and then of course a spare tire that's got air in it would be nice. And have 2 spare tires. I'm going to tell you guys, when this happens right here, when this happens, and we took the trailer tire off, this is my girlfriend, because this one blew. And guess what? When it blows, it usually causes a little bit of damage to this one. And you can't see it, but it dinks this somehow, either on the sidewall or something else, as it's coming off the trailer, because this is what it looked like when it was actually being destroyed. And you can imagine, as that's going whack, whack, whack at 80 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour, it's doing damage to the other trailer. So guess what? US Rider, that's one of the companies that does roadside assistance stuff, they started looking at how often they got a call for changing a tire, and then within an hour they would get another call for a change of the tire on the same side. So guess what was happening? It was destroying that second tire. So I have 2 spares on the front of my big gooseneck trailer. I only have 1 for my small trailer, but I use that for local. For big gooseneck stuff is for when I'm going to another state or I'm going across the country. And I have 2 spares because you already know it's going to happen. Once you lose one, the other one's going to happen. So it just injures that other tire. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about hitching. And I know this is running late, but I just have a lot of information. So if you don't mind, we're just going to go through
Just keep
this.
going.
Okay, good. So in this case, what we've done, I did not do this picture. This guy named Dwayne Russell did this photo, and I love it because he actually set it up correctly. And it shows a couple of things that we don't see in most trucks. First of all, we talked about those safety chains. These are correctly set. In other words, what he did was he took the gooseneck off the ball, and he allowed his truck pulling forward to see what would happen. He's simulating the accident here, okay? So this has slid off of here and slid backwards. At that point, the safety chains are equivalent in length, and they are supporting now the weight of the trailer. They are attached to a good heavy-duty, made-for-it bolt in the bed. A lot of people have crappy little whatevers in the bed of the truck that are not made to be able to take the 14,000-pound weight of that trailer under duress. Now, when this happens in real life and you're driving 70 miles an hour and the chains hold like that, now you've got that gooseneck bouncing around the back of your truck. And I promise you, it's not going to be fun. It's going to be awful. I've talked to people that have had it happen. And then as you slow down, the whole trailer comes forward. It hits the back of your truck and you're using your truck to slow it down. And it's awful and all those things, but at least it stays in the truck, right? Now, those are correct. What is this little thing right here? That is your emergency breakaway cable. I bought one of these. After I saw his pictures, I was like, where did you get that? And I bought these. I bought these heavy-duty bolts that are made to go in the back of your truck. And guess what? There's not even a place in my truck to do that. I had to drill a hole in the appropriate place to be able to do this. So your truck doesn't come with these generally, and you got to add those as add-ons into your vehicle. So anyway, that is a correctly set set of chains and the emergency breakaway cable that shows you how that would happen in a simulated accident. So this is what it would normally look like. You would have your gooseneck down on the ball. You would have your safety, some it has a ratchet, some it has a pin, whatever the safety latch is for your coupler. And then of course your chains are attached, and then your emergency breakaway cable. And these are available on Amazon. What those do is they attach to this little tiny clip here. I want you guys to go out tomorrow and on that clip, grab this end and just snatch it out of there. There's a little plastic clip that goes into that black box. And when you snatch it out, that is what would happen under duress. That would be snatched out of that box, and that would cause the emergency breakaway system to engage, that little battery that we talked about earlier that would engage the brakes. So, you know, this one, nice chains. Those are pretty heavy duty hooks. Looks like they've got the pin drop down in here. I don't exactly like the way they did this, because this breakaway cable could wrap around something else and be ripped out early, but it's not bad. It's better than most that I see. If you want to understand where I got a lot of this stuff, this is from Purdue. It's called Understanding the Horse Trailer Rig. You can Google it. Understanding the Horse Trailer Rig, Purdue University, and it's free to download. If you want to buy it, it's PPP 114. You can order them. They're like $5 a piece, and it's got everything in there about how to match your truck and trailer, how to make sure that your hitching system is done correctly. And then of course, to me, I would, if you've got a young person in the house, a teenager that's learning how to drive and is going to drive your horses around, or somebody that's never done this before, over 40, the kids finally went to college, now they get into horses, they need to read this document. It will help you a lot with understanding the safety on the side of the road. Don't let the Western saddle throw you. It's for everybody. I don't know why they do that. Whoever, you know, that's some artsy fartsy person, and I'm like, why would you put a Western saddle on that? Everybody should be interested in this. Don't let those things destroy it. So Here's your example right there up at the top. Okay, there's your the curb weight empty of that particular trailer is 10,000 pounds. And if you put 11 horses in there, they're 1,000-pound horses, it's going to be right at 21,000 pounds, which means if you put
can't haul
11,
anything else in there.
you can't put anything else in there. You can't put
Where's
a
all
bag
their
in the
hay go?
nose. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. And you better have at least a 450 or a 550 for that sucker.
Oh Lordy.
But I mean, that's the thing, you know. Otherwise, I have no problems with this trailer. It's a great trailer. There's plenty of access. The horses can see each other. They're probably going to be pretty happy. There's plenty of ventilation and all those kinds of things that make the veterinarians happy. So what's best for the horse in normal transport may not be what we think about for a wreck, right? So, you know, these are some examples of some of those European-made trailers. And when you look at them and you start realizing that there's, you know, they're lightweight because we're trying to, it's not that it's bad. European made trailers are great in Europe, okay? But the problem is when we try to bring them here and try to put those behind a Subaru going down the road at 70 miles an hour. So what I say is that, you know, that trailer, when we're putting our animals into it, we have to think about some of the things that, you know, go back to our 5 freedoms concern, you know. Those are the things from welfare side that we should be looking at for our horses. And what we really look at, Dr. Sharon Krieger up in PEI Canada, she is sort of the guru. She's my mentor for a lot of this stuff. And she said, you know, basically a lot of the manufacturers are ignoring the kinds of things that horses need, but also they're not worried about the emergency responders and your safety on the side of the road. So we've got to get better as consumers of these products and be pickier about what we're actually purchasing. I see trailers all the time on Facebook that are going for $2,000 and $3,000, and I'm thinking, really? What's best for your horse under normal transport? Are we thinking about having 2 ways that the horse can't get out? So a butt bar or a butt chain and a ramp or a door. 2 ways to keep your horse in that trailer. Making sure that we always load the largest horse in the United States on the left-hand side of the trailer, because we want the weight on the crown of the road. This is the best example. This horse is like 18 hands, and this is an Arabian. And obviously the big 18-hander should be on the left-hand side of the trailer. Thinking about egress, how do we, you know, get the horses into the trailer and out of the trailer? I see people put huge horses in teeny tiny trailers all the time, and then they wonder why the horses scramble in the trailer. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they can't get base wide. They can't spread their legs when they're in transport. They want to be able to support themselves. They don't have hands, and they don't have, in trailers, there isn't all the safety gear that somebody was asking about. You know, there's no ratings, there's no testing. Basically, however the manufacturer wants to build the trailer above the trailer floor, everything else is what the manufacturer wants to do. None of it's tested. So we have to be smarter looking at the things that are in our trailers for the safety of our animals under normal transport. So we already mentioned, you know, teach your horses to load and unload safely. A lot of people, they put a big horse in here, and when the horse comes out, he hits his head on this bar on the back of the trailer. That's telling you either you got a high-headed horse. Oh wait, these are Friesians. They're all high-headed. Okay, I'm teasing. This is a big 16.5 hand walking horse that my husband owns. Okay, when he backs out of trailers, because he's got to use his head and neck for leverage, as he backs out, he has to raise his head and neck. If you have a low trailer here, he would hit his head. So he needs lots of room. So I've got the tallest trailer that I could get and the widest trailer I could get for him to be able to be comfortable loading and unloading off those trailers. This is obviously a smaller horse that wouldn't have so much of a problem with that. Whether you have a ramp or not, or a step up or not, that really comes down to your perspectives on that. Some horses, you know, people say, my horse doesn't like ramps, my horse doesn't like step ups, those kind of things. And I go, how much time do you spend loading your horses? How much have you spent time training your horses? They should load and unload at will, and they shouldn't be in a big hurry. To me, it's far more important than all the other blue ribbons and those kinds of things. It's more important that they load and unload safely for them and for you. If you've never stood behind a horse that panics running out of a trailer, that is deadly dangerous for a person as well as for the horse. So what do you do once you get him in there? Is this the situation you had there, young lady? Was she tied in the trailer?
No.
Okay, good girl. With a baby, it's easier to not have them tied. I'm going to show you guys something. This is a standard trailer tie for anything. And what is this called? A panic snap, right? Well, the problem with a panic snap is it requires opposable thumbs, which horses do not have. So it would be in your trailer like this, and you would come along and you would pull that, and this would open and allow this to slide down, right? But horses can't do it, which means you have to stick your hand in that trailer in this situation with this horse down and undo this. So why not put something better than this in the system? Put yourself a piece of hay twine. Put yourself, if you don't want hay twine, Mrs. Jackie Mars has hay twine in her barn. She's richer than anybody else I've ever met. So if she can have that, you can have that. But guess what? You can also go get an equine ping and spend $7 on the little plastic thingy here if you don't like hay string, okay? Put something in the system that will break, because this horse, when he went down in the horse trailer, he's attached by this. And most people don't know, this is 4,000-pound webbing. The webbing that's on his halter is also 4,000-pound webbing. He can't break it. The only thing that you have a chance of breaking is maybe if you have some crappy metal and it's old enough and rusted, maybe it'll break. But these things will not break at 4,000 pounds. So your horse is on the end of this thing and you roll that trailer or you slam on brakes or whatever you have to do, and he slides down in the trailer. Now he's hanging by his face from whatever, which is exactly what's happening with back horse. So put something in the system that will break. Do it for your cross ties, do it for your trailer ties. And if you guys have anything in your truck and trailer that looks anything or functions as a bungee tie, cut it, burn it, do not give it to your friends, cut it, destroy it, and ask them not to sell it at the store. These things can load up to 12,000 pounds of pressure on them. And what eventually will happen is the suture, the stitching will fail. And if it happens in the trailer and your horse jumps out of the trailer and he's still attached, when this fails, this will fly back and hit him in the eye, or it'll hit you in the eye. It's killed horses. It's destroyed eyes. A girlfriend of mine at North Carolina State University was a veterinarian. She had lost an eye from that exact same thing in a cross tie. So anything with bungees, just take them out of the system and destroy them. They're deadly dangerous. They're deadly dangerous to fire department people too that are trying to help you with your trailer wreck. Okay, so now
I got two quick questions.
Okay, go ahead.
One of them's back on the breakaway thing. So Laura wanted to know, the little black box that you plug that breakaway cable into, does it have its own battery, or is it?
It's that little small battery that I showed you earlier.
And how often does those need to be replaced?
This. Every 5 years.
So it's powered by that.
That battery powers that little black box. And that little black box is literally a piece of plastic. It is a little piece of plastic. But if you snatch it right here, just come along and just take this and just go and pull it. And there is a little plastic pin in there that will allow the two contacts to come together. And that's when it would engage your brakes.
Okay.
Good question.
And then Christy asked, what are your thoughts on tying a horse or not tying them in the trailer?
To tie or not to tie is
That
actually a long thing. I will actually send you my long official answer to that. It comes down to the trailer and it comes down to the horses. So if you load your horses in a slant load trailer and you put your butt head, the last horse in, and he can reach over and grab and bite on the next horse, he's going to cause a trailer wreck, because guess what? The other horse is trying to get away from him and he can't go anywhere because he's in a slant load and he's like, I'm getting eaten. Okay. If they either have a stud divider or they are kind to each other and they don't bite on each other, then they don't have to be attached. If they're in, let's see, my trailer here, okay? My 2-horse trailer here, that's my 2-horse trailer. I tie them, their lead ropes go right to that little thing right there with a something in the system that will break in that 2-horse trailer, because guess what? They can reach down and grab on each other, or back up and reach over and grab each other here. This is my friend's trailer. This is basically a stud divider. There's no way that the 2 horses can get a hold of each other. And he can make the decision whether or not he wants to have them tied or not tied. In a stock trailer, no really reason to tie them unless there's multiple horses and they're going to be evil to each other. It really depends upon the trailer. It depends on how the animals act in that trailer. You know, in my big slant load trailer, when I haul cross country, I make sure that the animals are loaded so that the butt head is the first horse, so she can't reach behind her and bite somebody. So she goes in the first one and she can have her hay on the floor and she doesn't mess with anybody. And that way they can get their heads down, because that's really the biggest problem. If you talk to the veterinarians, it's all about having their heads down. And of course, you want them to be eating all the time. You're not supposed to go more than 4 hours without eating. So and that goes back to all the veterinary stuff. So very, very complicated, but remind me and I will add that to tie or not to tie long answer into
Okay.
yeah. The next thing I want you guys to think about is, what do you do if you have an emergency? Because you're going to have an emergency. That's just one of those things. This is my girlfriend. She's coming to my place, and in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, she blows a tire, and then she tries to put her spare on, and the spare doesn't work because it didn't have enough air in it. So she's sort of screwed, and she's on the side of the road, and she calls us 2 o'clock in the morning. What do? We go and we pull our horse trailer up and load her 2 horses in it, and had her take her truck and trailer down to the tire place, leave it at 2 o'clock in the morning. We'll be back in the morning to get it fixed, right? So have a friend, drop a quarter, call somebody that cares, right? That's what you need. You need to have somebody that cares. So whether that is a side of the road emergency service that's going to come and help, if it's somebody that you can call that's going to come help you get your animals, because this is where a lot of people end up. They have some problem, and then they're leading their horses down the middle of the highway, which is, this is deadly dangerous for you. It's deadly dangerous for the emergency responders. It's deadly dangerous for your horses. This is just bad, bad, bad in every single kind of way. And then when you make it dark, or you make it rainy, or you make it anything else, and people are like, oh my God, horses, horses, horses. Guess what? You cause secondary accidents and those kind of things. We don't want people unloading horses on the side of the interstate and taking them home. So come up with a plan, whatever that plan will be. Make some coordination. If you're driving across the country, you might want to call a few places, friends between here and there. These days with Facebook, it's easier to find people. Hey, I'm making my plan. If I was driving through your state, who would I, who's the vet that I would call if I had a colicky horse? Who would I call if I had to get a tire changed? Would you bring a truck and trailer to come get me? I've actually had to have somebody do that for me before. So what is your plan, and plan ahead? Because once it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's difficult to make that plan, because these kind of things happen. It's just the way it is. So what's the best for the horses in an emergency? What I want you guys, I'm going to show you some things. They're not too gory, but what I want you to think about is, think about it from the perspective of the incident. What would have been maybe a better way to handle these kind of things, and what you're looking for in these kinds of incidents. And really, it comes down to understanding animal behavior and their instincts under fear. A fearful horse is not a normal horse. It is a terrified horse, and it's 1,000 pounds, and it can do basically whatever it wants to do. And we put it inside of a box, and then we want to try to get it. So they do crazy things. They jump over the front, whatever you call it, the chest bars, the chest chains. The chest, in this case, is a European-made horse trailer, and it went into the tack room. In this one, they went to load, they already had her in there, and then they load another horse, and she doesn't like the other horse. So what's she do? And she goes to kick. And guess what? Her leg comes down over the bar. Now what? Because if you just pull the pin and slide her backward over that bar, you're going to destroy her. You're going to gut her probably. So you got to come up with a better way. So when I look at these kind of pictures, I think, if that was my trailer, would I want this? I mean, wouldn't I want a solid panel there? Would I want this to be sharp, or would I want this to be rounded? That would make some of my challenges for me. How do I look at do I look at anything different once I've seen it in an actual wreck? That's the point. And then this one, of course, obviously the person hit the brakes really hard and the horse panicked. tried to balance his weight, his front end went up, and as they hit the brakes, he went over the chest panel. In this case, that's okay. It's over in the UK. It's easy enough to remove the rivets on these kinds of trailers. You just remove the rivets, and they actually lifted the horse out of the trailer. That's how cheap they are. I do not like European-made trailers. Anyway, and then of course you take a look at, I don't like that kind of a chest bar. Look at that. That's awful, because a horse can put a foot through it. This may be okay. I really prefer solid things so that hooves and, a foal's hoof could go through that very easily. If it does go forward and goes over the chest bar and it's hanging there, do we have a way for that chest bar or those chains or whatever you've got there in the front to be easily removed? When you look at doors in trailers, I want that horse to not be able to leave. A lot of people, this one actually has the divider window. I don't know why it wasn't up. The horse apparently panicked and decided he wanted to leave when you took his buddy out. So, if your horses are fractious like that, I would leave those gates up so that you don't have to worry about it. This is another example. This is a really crappy trailer, but they actually, this is the horse here. And then this goes, they made it so that there's a translation to the living quarters up here, and a person can walk back and forth between the horses. What? That's just dangerous. I mean, awful. It was just awful. I don't know what people are thinking. So I don't want that horse to be able to get out of that transport at all. And I certainly don't want them to be able to go forward into the living quarters, because many of the situations, this is another one that went forward into the living quarters, very similar design. And the horse got away from the horse section and started going in towards the living quarters. Well, of course, once he did that and he slipped and fell down, now the fire department's there and they're destroying that trailer, I promise. They're using a ram, which is going to push the metal apart so we can get the horse out. But why was it capable of going in towards that living quarters in the first place? That's bad trailer design. I do not like that. Any horses, they are born circling the drain, and they should be wrapped up in bubble wrap. And we know that they can do these things. So why give them the option, right? This is what I was talking about, headroom. That horse is a saint. It loaded itself in there. Okay, I'll put my head down. A horse has to use its head and neck to balance. And this is a mounted police unit. And that trailer is way too small for these horses.
Oh, man.
And they are being very good. And they are going in that trailer. But I was like, oh my goodness, don't do that. And when they do, put yourself a piece of pipe foam back here. If you're having a problem with the horse, I'd much rather you get a bigger trailer, but if you're having a problem with a particular horse, put yourself a piece of piping foam there so that when he comes out, he can feel the foam and he won't bash his head as he's backing out of the trailer. Just awful. And then of course, crappy trailers, places where the welds break. You can tell that these are cheap welds. That horse kicked that door and now his foot's hung. I mean, that's awful. This is European-made trailers. All your European-made trailers, they may look pretty on the outside, but they are made with plywood, and there's a rubber membrane, and then they lay the mats down on top of that. And when eventually your plywood gets wet, that's what happens. Feet go through it.
Good God.
Horses go through floors. These are all European-made trailers here. This is an American-made trailer here. It's a stock trailer, and they didn't even tack the floor in. Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness, so dumb. But these European-made trailers, they're notorious for having weak spots, and the horse falls right through them. And those are boxes. Those are huge. They're made for 2 or 3 horses. Ramps. Take a real hard look at your ramp. You can tell that horse was stepping in or stepping out, and its foot went down in between the ramp and the trailer. That is a very bad design. I don't know what was going on with that one. So just take a look at all those places that could go wrong with your trailers. And of course, if you've got pictures, I'm all over Facebook and PM all the time. Send me a picture. I'll take a look at it. Just don't get butt hurt if I have an opinion. So what are our best practices for transport? Really, it comes down to looking at your hitching, your maintenance. How often do you do that? Do you have you maintain the trailer depending on how much you use it. The worst trailers are the ones that people hardly ever use because they don't take them often enough. They think it was last year that they got it fixed, and it ain't last year, it's 5 years ago. And then of course, how do you think about trailer safety for learning how to drive your trailer? Training your horses to load and unload, have a relationship with your veterinarian, or if you're driving across the country, I would call ahead to some veterinarians that are going to be along your route. If I had a problem with a colicky horse, would I be able to call you? Some veterinarians will tell you, if you're not my client, I'm sorry, but and I don't know if you guys have looked around, but equine veterinarians are as rare as hen's teeth these days. So have a good relationship with your veterinarian. Clean and check your trailer regularly. Look at everything: the ramps, the floors, the doors, the hitch, the electrical, the tires. If you don't know, find somebody that does know. Crawl down underneath your trailer, take a look at all those kind of things. And then of course, prepare to break down with your trailer. There is a document that Dr. Sharon Krieger and I put together. We actually did it, Angie, we were trying to embarrass the national trailer manufacturers in the United States. There's an organization called National Association of Trailer Manufacturers, and we were trying to embarrass them into getting better standards, because their standards are minimum standards. They're not really good standards, they're just minimum standards. So we looked at Canada and we said, hey, maybe we can get the Canadians to do it, and we really haven't. But we put together this document, and it's a big document, but there's tons of information in there, and it's a lot of stuff, and it's all made for under 10,000 pound trailers. So your 2-horse trailers, your 3-horse tag-alongs that I really don't like. And it also covers some things that are for living quarters and goosenecks also. But we put a lot of information into that to try to guide people on the historical why trailers are the way they are, and then taking a look at how we could do a better job of making better standards for how we build the bulkhead, how we put the roof on. I don't know if you saw the one, it was just a couple of weeks ago, there was all over Facebook. This lady was driving down the road and she had a riveted horse trailer roof, and it literally came off the trailer while she was driving down the road. And the horses, they've got a great picture. The horses stand there like, whoo, I can really see now. But there's no excuse for that. It's just a riveted crap trailer roof. And it's just awful. So you can take a look at that. You can always get a hold of me. That's my email and my cell phone. You can find me on Facebook, which is probably even easier, is send me a PM. There is a webinar series that has a lot to do with large animal rescue and flooding preparedness. There's a whole bunch of things on that webinar series. I encourage you to go take a look at. I did those with Wendy Murdoch. And other than that, I will take your questions.
Believe it or not, there are no questions at this moment. So
I think I just
guys,
overwhelmed everybody. They're like, oh no.
If you have questions, you can start typing them in the Q&A box now. But as we start to close out, I can just say that I have a whole sheet of things that I will be doing tomorrow. Just checking, make sure my trailer's up to snuff. So we all have some homework to do.
Yeah, take pictures and send them to me. And really what I need to do is, I've got a checklist, but I really need to add some more things to my checklist. So I'm going to take a look at that, and then I'll send it to you, and we can upload that at some point tomorrow or the next day. I just got back home for 26 days of traveling, so I've got a little bit of work to do around here too.
And we spent tonight talking about what a safe trailer should look like, the things that we need to make sure that we understand about our towing weights and our vehicle weights, all of that math that we all need to do. But next week, same time, same place, next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to delve into what to do if we are ever in an accident with our horse trailer and our horses. So we've got all this information about how we can make our truck and trailer as safe as possible, how to connect everything correctly, how to tow the horse correctly, but sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I know that next week will be so valuable. And I tell you, tonight, like I said, I have a whole list of things that I just want to go and look at my own truck and trailer. So if you guys do this, walk around at the next time you go to a show, and just take 15 minutes, walk around the show and look at other people's horse trailers, and just look at how they're hitched
and there's a whole variety. And some of the mouse traps are really good, and some of the mouse traps are really, really bad. But if you start taking a look at that, it'll scare you to death in some places, but it'll also make you smarter, because the more trailers you look at and how they're hitched, and some of the things that you see that are good or bad, just ask yourself, you know, is there any way my horse could hurt itself in that? Or if it was tied to the side of it? And that's really where the truth of it comes out.
Right. Okay. Well, we will see you next week. And again, thank you so much. Everybody is commenting here in the chat how excellent this was. And I'll tell you, the people that were signed in this webinar, they hung out the whole time. So no one went to
Thank
sleep.
you.
Everybody was taking notes, I promise. So thank
And
you again.
I'll put some real brain cells into trying to upgrade my checklist too, so that when I send it to you, it's got lots of more things.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you again, Dr. Husted, and we will see you guys all next week.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.